Chapter 841. Sweeping across the heavens? What do you mean, are you saying he already has the power to rival Father? Tianhao frowned and asked, his tone suddenly turning colder. After regaining his memories, his feelings for the Celestial Emperor returned to their original state, filled with resentment and dissatisfaction, but undeniably, the Celestial Emperor was the most powerful existence in his heart. Even his master Guan could not compare. Guan secluded himself here, surely with some unspeakable secret. While the Celestial Emperor is high above, overlooking all beings, none can shake his dominion. Son of Heaven Jie Yen remained unfazed and replied, "You don't understand Father enough. Before Tai Shang, no Son of Heaven had wielded the power of the Celestial Court. If Father gets angry, even the Celestial Tao Venerable would be stripped of the immortal position, falling into the red dust would be minor, and in worse cases both body and soul would perish." How could Tianhao not know the Celestial Emperor's dominance? After all, he too has fallen into the mortal realm. If not for encountering Master Guan, he felt he would still have to undergo countless reincarnations, not knowing where the end lies. There are not few sons of heaven like him. Within all heavens and myriad realms, many sons of heaven rise and fall, not to mention the errant immortal gods. The thought of the number of heavenly court immortals brings an immense pressure upon Tianhao. They not only have to face the Son of Heaven Tai Shang, but also the entirety of the Celestial Court's power. If Tai Shang truly has power not inferior to the Celestial Emperor, then they indeed have no chance of victory. The two fell into silence once more. Son of Heaven Jie Yen closed his eyes again, continuing his enlightenment. Tianhao turned around, preparing to leave, but just as he was halfway turned, he suddenly asked, "Are you staying here because of that mortal child?" "I am only contemplating the true path I should take. Since you and I are brothers, let me advise you. If you cannot resist Tai Shang, why not distance yourself from the Celestial Court, spend the remaining time on enlightenment, perhaps when you find your own road, you will see a path to life." Son of Heaven Jie Yen replied with his eyes closed, his tone more gentle than before. Tianhao gave him a meaningful look, then turned and left, heading back the way he came, soon disappearing into the vast white snow. The snow continued falling, landing on Son of Heaven Jie Yen. Day by day, Son of Heaven Jie Yen was buried by the snow, merging with the world as one. The internal strife of the Celestial Court did not affect the 3,000 great worlds, where their own stories were unfolding. This year, a peerless genius emerged on the path of the great Tao, cultivating both as a Taoist emperor and a primordial Tao emperor. When the unbeaten emperor ancestor from the primordial emperor domain visited Guan, he mentioned this genius, saying that in his lifetime he had never seen such a formidable genius. Even in the primordial emperor domain, it was absolutely unprecedented in history. The two of them were having tea in an inn on the Nine-Spirit continent, and the unbeaten emperor ancestor was endlessly talking about that genius, while Guan listened with interest like hearing a story. The nearby tables of guests were also drawn to the unbeaten emperor ancestor's words. The terms coming out of this old man's mouth sounded quite formidable. As for Guan, they were not too curious. Even if the Nine-Spirit continent was shrouded by a dojo, few had seen Guan's true appearance. Emperor Xin has already declared that he wants to challenge all the strong of the 3,000 great worlds, and then wage war on the primordial emperor domain, Misty Immortal Court, Ling Mountain, and other extraordinary domains. Truly arrogant, yet there are many forces that support him, and several emperor clans in the primordial emperor domain want to recruit him and absorb his bloodline. The unbeaten emperor ancestor clicked his tongue in amazement and looked at Guan, asking, "In the celestial spirit great world, is there anyone who can oppose him?" He wanted to ask about Wuxia disciple, but didn't want to be too direct. In his view, the celestial spirit great world was not strong, it was Wuxia who was strong. In terms of talent, indeed there are those who can outshine him, but if he arrives, no one will be able to stop him. Guan replied with a smile. He wasn't speaking frivolously, as this was something destined to happen. Emperor Xin was meant to become a legendary myth. The reason for his widespread conquests was because he had heard tales of his own legend. Unlike those tragic hero stories, Emperor Xian's life was smooth and successful. He would sweep through the heavens, sealing himself a god with supreme glory, becoming part of the immortal class, and in the era of Ji, legend has it that Emperor Xian ushered a brilliant golden age. Looking at it now, Guan saw even more. The reason for Emperor Xian's success was because he had an extraordinary existence supporting him. The Son of Heaven Tai Shang, now the ruler of the Celestial Court. Indeed, Emperor Xian has grown up now. The unbeaten emperor ancestor remarked with admiration, and at the same time, he secretly respected Guan's magnanimity. It was clear from Guan's words that he was not planning to suppress Emperor Xian. The two continued their conversation, turning to the topic of the primordial emperor domain. Recently, the undefeated emperor clan was also facing troubles, and in the primordial emperor domain, there were many emperor clans. Since previously suffering a setback on the path of the Great Tao, the status of the undefeated emperor clan had been declining. His visit this time wasn't just to see the emperor clan staying in the celestial spirit great world but more importantly to seek help. In the past tens of millions of years, he considered his performance fairly satisfactory, so he mustered the courage to come. After he finished speaking, Guan said, "I cannot help you directly as that would violate the heavenly Tao. The current repercussions for the undefeated emperor clan result from your improper conduct, so this is a hardship you must endure. However, I can give you hope. Wait for several million more years, and I will grant the undefeated emperor clan a spot to ascend to immortality. But this spot has a threshold and the person must satisfy me." Hearing the first half of Guan's words, the unbeaten emperor ancestor felt despondent, but upon hearing the latter part, he became overjoyed. Ascend to immortality. Even in the primordial emperor domain, the pursuit of an immortal position is sought after. But the threshold of the celestial court is extremely high. At most, they can nominate a clansman to participate in the celestial army selection. Treading the heavenly ascension stairs is exceedingly difficult, nearly impossible. Suppressing his joy, the unbeaten emperor ancestor asked, "May I ask of which tier is the immortal position?" Guan replied, "At least a star monarch. As for the specific immortal position, it depends on one's own fortune." Star monarch. The unbeaten emperor ancestor's eyes widened, his breath becoming rapid. Once, a star monarch descended to the primordial emperor domain, and even ancient existences with higher cultivation levels than this star monarch were forced to kneel. That scene remains unforgettable to him. Heavenly court immortals are immortal, and this is their confidence when facing stronger forces. For immortal gods, cultivation level doesn't seem as important, such as the power of the celestial court. If the undefeated emperor clan were to bear a star monarch, it would truly soar to unprecedented heights, surpassing even its peak period. Their conversation aroused more curiosity among the surrounding people, who frequently glanced at Guan, discovering they couldn't see his true form, which surprised them secretly. With such a grand tone, could this person be one of Wuxi's first 5 generations of disciples? Guan stood up and smiled, "We've had our drink, accompany me for a walk. Together, see what the 9-spirit continent looks like now and offer your insights." The unbeaten emperor ancestor hurriedly rose and followed Guan out of the inn. His emotions were uncontrollable, the smile on his face impossible to suppress. Wuxia the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 842. Guan and the unbeaten emperor ancestor rode the clouds forward, admiring the scenery along the way. The unbeaten emperor ancestor praised everything about the 9-spirit continent. "What if the person you choose is completely inclined towards the celestial court?" Guan suddenly asked. The unbeaten emperor ancestor replied without hesitation, "Impossible, I would never choose such descendants." Walking from the inn to this place, he had already constructed a series of plans in his mind. After reclaiming his position as the heavenly court star lord, his next target was the celestial court. He feared the power of the heavenly court immortals, craved the heavenly court immortals' authority, but would never forget his hatred. His wife and child died at the hands of the heavenly court immortals, and until now he hasn't been able to avenge them. In the long years that passed, he almost gave up. Facing the unshakable celestial court, he had not a single chance for revenge, especially as the undefeated emperor clan passed down through generations. He dared not make a move against the heavenly court immortals. Back then he submitted to Guan not just because he resented the celestial court but because living on was the only way to protect his family. Now Guan offered him a chance as star monarch. He not only saw hope for the clan's prosperity but also the possibility of vengeance. Countless years have passed, and that celestial god must have climbed to an even higher immortal position. He wished to investigate from outside. It was almost impossible. If an associate could infiltrate the celestial court, it would be much easier. The undefeated emperor clan cannot seek vengeance against the immortals, but there must be strife among the immortals themselves. The seed of hatred sprouted once more in the unbeaten emperor ancestor's heart, and this time, it was not just anger but unprecedented excitement. A hatred suppressed for countless years. Besides, he saw more. That was the relationship between Guan and the Celestial Court. Tens of millions of years ago, Guan clearly had an unknown conflict with the Celestial Court, but now, Guan could intervene in the immortal position, leading to many associations regarding Guan's true identity. Guan could perceive the psychological activities of the unbeaten emperor ancestor but did not point them out, only sighing inwardly. Even though the unbeaten emperor ancestor possessed the immortal emperor's eye, he could not see through the terrifying nature of the heavenly Tao. The human heart is fragile in the face of the heavenly Tao. After that, Guan spoke no more, shifting the topic to the cities along the way. Guan had his own considerations in wanting the undefeated emperor clan members to ascend to immortality because he saw that the clan would give birth to a second pair of immortal emperor's eyes. Why the immortal emperor's eyes were dreaded by the Celestial Court, Guan still couldn't discern, because the cause and effect of the immortal emperor's eyes had been severed, leaving no trace within the Celestial Court. 8 million years later, the human world acquired a new visage, the son of heaven and earth, Guan Tianyu of the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance, fully matured. Although a profound Yuan-free immortal, he could challenge a Luotian-free immortal without defeat, shaking the universe. The name Guan Tianyu spread throughout the land, even Qi Cultivation realm cultivators discussing his might. In the eyes of the world, Guan Tianyu was already number one. However, the good times did not last long, as the Celestial Spirit Great World received an unexpected guest. It was none other than Emperor Xin, who combined the Taoist Emperor and Primordial Tao Emperor titles, arriving through the World Gate, with the Celestial Spirit God not obstructing him. If he infiltrated the Celestial Spirit Great World, he would be captured and exterminated by the Celestial Spirit God. Emperor Xin called out to the entire Celestial Spirit Great World, attracting all the great cultivators to battle in outer heaven. The Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance, as the Heavenly Sovereign, naturally led, but unfortunately news of consecutive defeats reached within the universe, causing all living beings great unease. If such a formidable existence was to invade the Celestial Spirit Great World, it would spell an apocalypse? In the summer of this year. Search * the Nell Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. At the foot of the heavenly suppressing heroic peak, the son of heaven Jiyan was meditating and cultivating, a skeleton still by his side, just it became more natural than before, showing no signs of having been shattered, and was identical in posture to him. Now the human world no longer paid attention to him, including the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance, which, ever since Guan Tianyu matured, completely ceased to surveil him. Boom! A deafening roar came from the sky. The son of heaven Jiyan looked up to see a golden rainbow light appeared in the celestial vault, akin to a dandelion in bloom, followed by a meteor wrapped in fiery flames streaking across the celestial vault, falling beyond the horizon. Master, what's happening in outer heaven? Why doesn't it settle down? A voice came from beside him, the talking skeleton, its voice identical to the cloth-clad youth back then. The son of heaven Jiyan replied, "It's just people in combat, don't worry, the heavens won't collapse." Is it that self-proclaimed Emperor Xin fighting? Yes. It's been so long he hasn't been defeated yet? Master, will it be your turn to fight one day? You are the son of heaven, you must be the strongest in the world. If I was the strongest, I wouldn't be suppressed here. That Emperor Xin is indeed powerful. I can't defeat him, at most remain undefeated. The son of heaven Jiyan's response made the skeleton lift its head, seemingly surprised by this answer. Afterwards, the son of heaven Jiyan closed his eyes again and said, "All right, work hard in cultivation and transform early. It'll take you to see the human world and help address your regrets." The skeleton murmured, "I've died countless years ago, further regrets hold no meaning." The son of heaven Jiyan did not respond, continuing with his cultivation. The battle outside continued. The celestial spirit Great World did not besiege Emperor Xin, since Emperor Xin sparred without taking his opponent's lives, preventing the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance from acting recklessly. Yet as one renowned great cultivator after another was defeated, the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance grew anxious. Would they truly let an outsider sweep the Celestial Spirit Great World? They had to call upon Guan Tianyu to take action. Guan Tianyu was indeed strong, giving Emperor Xin significant trouble. He was the longest-lasting opponent in this realm. Unfortunately, he ultimately succumbed. The Luotian free immortals of the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance could no longer hold back and went into battle. The news of Guan Tianyu's defeat spread to the human world, causing an uproar. The campaigns of Emperor Xin were unending. Within years he claimed 1,000 victories, showcasing an unmatched victory stance. In the dim cosmos, Emperor Xian stood proudly in the void, donning a silver battle armor, with 2 long sashes swirling about his waist and back. Behind the menacing helmet were 2 golden crescent moons hovering. His face was handsome, his gaze cold and indifferent, an inseparable air of arrogance exuding. With furrowed eyebrows, he scanned the surroundings, seeing all cultivators and great demons baring their teeth at him, their eyes filled with dread. Is there no stronger presence in the celestial spirit great world? Emperor Xian shouted loudly, his voice like thunder, echoing endlessly, resounding in the ears of all celestial spirit beings. Ji Xiaoyu stood amidst the sea of heavenly spirit Dao Alliance people, quietly watching Emperor Xian. As an innate golden immortal, she did not intend to fight. She could see that although Emperor Xian was arrogant, he was not a great evil person. She did not wish to reveal her true power for the sake of such an individual. Why not? If you really think you're strong, go challenge Wuxia. The true powerful entities of the celestial spirit great world are hidden within the beginningless. A middle-aged cultivator couldn't help himself, shouting angrily. Upon hearing this, the alliance hierarchs of the heavenly spirit Dao Alliance all frowned, but many more living beings echoed his sentiment, using Wuxia to provoke Emperor Xian. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 843, Arrogant and Unrivaled, Beginningless. Emperor Xian raised an eyebrow, silently muttering this name. Instinctively he calculated with his fingers, but unfortunately he couldn't deduce any cause and effect related to Wuxia, which piqued his interest. He turned his gaze toward the celestial spirit great world, his divine sense sweeping through. Only one place remained obscure, it must be the hiding spot of Wuxia. If that's the case, then I shall challenge Wuxia. Emperor Xian stepped towards the celestial spirit great world, and his words caused the faces of the gathered great powers to change drastically, yet no one hindered him. Firstly, they couldn't stop him, secondly, they hoped Wuxia could suppress Emperor Xian's arrogance. Ji Xiaoyu hesitated for a moment in the crowd but ultimately did not step forward. Emperor Xian's venture would at most disturb Brother Gu, who after all seemed quite idle. Thinking of this, Ji Xiaoyu's lips curled up, showing some anticipation. At the same time, people started to follow Emperor Xian's footsteps to watch the battle. Someone took the lead, followed by more people, and soon the cultivators from outer heaven formed a long line, trailing Emperor Xian. They had absolute confidence in Ancestor Master Wuxia, as he had never been defeated. The only suspense lay in how Emperor Xian would be defeated. On the other side, Guan was not within the Taoist field of the beginningless. He was in the middle of guiding Shaolan's cultivation. Currently, Shaolan also reached the heaven-encompassing free immortal realm, and in terms of cultivation level, she ranked among the top 5 in the celestial spirit great world. Of course, this did not include the immortal gods. Guan was not directly helping her become an innate golden immortal. Instead, he wanted her to mature a bit more and accumulate insights. It wasn't because he favored Ji Xiaoyu more, but Ji Xiaoyu's reincarnation experiences far exceeded those of Shaolan. The two stood in a forest, Shaolan raising her right hand, with a green lotus suspended above her palm, continuously emitting silvery threads, and the light it produced illuminated her face, highlighting her expressions of anticipation, anxiety, and joy. Guan stood beside her, watching with admiration and praised, condensing Tao into lotus, your thought Tao has achieved something. The thought Tao is the Tao of thoughts and ideas, distinct from the soul Tao but intricately connected to it. There must be a soul to have a mind, and with a mind comes endless thoughts. Cultivators comprehend the Tao with the 3,000 great Tao, but few choose to cultivate the thought Tao. Guan, although primarily focusing on the path of cause and effect and the path of power, has dabbled in the 3,000 great Tao, and even if he is not familiar, his perspective and insights into the thought Tao are enough to benefit Shaolan greatly. Without Brother Gu, how could I have such fortune? Shaolan looked up at Guan, speaking with a bright smile. In the Shao family she was the supreme and revered ancestor, but in front of Guan she was always the younger sister. Memories of past and present lives merged without erasing her original colors, even fostering a new self. Shaolan withdrew her hand and dispersed the green lotus within it. She turned to Guan and curiously asked, "You should have heard the conversation from outer heaven. That Emperor Xian is about to challenge Wuxia. Aren't you returning?" Guan shook his head, chuckling, "A trivial Emperor Xian still requires my intervention? Oh, Is there a disciple within the beginningless more formidable than Emperor Xian? Xiaolan grew more curious. Guan smiled silently then followed up, since you don't want to practice anymore, take me for a walk. Your Xiao family has truly grown larger, its reputation has even spread to the nine-spirit continent. Xiaolan hugged Guan's arm and responded, large it is, but problems have also increased, with emotions and reasons entangled. Sometimes it's truly hard to resolve. I gradually understand why you left the Supreme Sect. The two departed the forest while continuing their conversation. The Xiao family is still just beginning. Compared to the ancient clans standing in the 3,000 great worlds, the Xiao family is merely starting out. I left the Supreme Sect simply to change my environment, change my mood, and maybe one day I'll leave the celestial spirit great world. Guan comforted, although the Xiao family had various troubles, overall they had not gone astray. Currently, the Xiao family had thousands of disciples, so it was inevitable that some evil individuals existed. Fortunately, the Xiao family's laws were strict and didn't shelter evildoers, so Guan's impression of them remained decent. If you leave the celestial spirit great world, then I'll follow you. I have already served the Xiao family well. Xiaolan spoke with a radiant smile, her tone filled with anticipation. She had traveled the path of the great Tao and knew that there was a vaster world beyond the heavens. Following Guan through the heavens would indeed be an unparalleled experience. Shooting stars streaked across the sky, a phenomenon of the great powers descending upon the mortal realm. Emperor Xian flew towards the nine-spirit continent, his divine sense enveloping the heavens and gaining a deeper understanding of the celestial spirit great world. Immortal gods, son of heaven, ancestor master Wuxia. This great thousand world is indeed fascinating. Emperor Xian's eyes burned with fighting spirit, eager for the upcoming battle. As he flew, he approached the vicinity of the nine-spirit continent. Below, a boundless ocean spread, with spirit mist surging at the horizon like a wall at the world's edge, mysterious and grand. Countless great power cultivators descended from the heavens, hovering in the distance, watching Emperor Xian's back, whispering amongst themselves. Two figures flew over from the other side of the heavens, one of them handsome and valiant, though dressed in simple Taoist robes. His spirit was akin to a treasure sword emerging from its sheath, attracting attention. This person was the top prodigy of the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance, Guan Tianyu. After being defeated by Emperor Xian, Guan Tianyu returned to heal. Upon hearing Emperor Xian challenging Wuxia, he couldn't resist coming to watch. Alongside him was his master, ancestor Master Qingguang, one of the hierarchs of the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance. Master, will ancestor Master Wuxia show up? Guan Tianyu halted, gazing distantly at Emperor Xian's figure, voicing his inquiry. Though he had always stayed within the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance, he held a curiosity regarding Wuxia. Having met disciples of Wuxia, their brilliance inspired him. Even though he had grown powerful, he didn't feel confident enough to challenge Wuxia, as the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance continuously advised, to be spirited but not arrogant, especially maintaining respect for Wuxia. As one senior hierarch noted, all living beings in the celestial spirit great world owe a debt to Wuxia. Ancestor Master Qingguang mused, it's unlikely that he will appear, but with Emperor Xian already at the doorstep of Wuxi's Tao sect, an entertaining show awaits us. Guan Tianyu was about to further inquire when suddenly, Emperor Xian's voice rang out, resounding stone-shattering. I am Emperor Xian, here to challenge Wuxia, regardless if it's ancestor Master Wuxia or Wuxia disciple. Come forth and face me. Let me see if the celestial spirit great world houses any true formidable ones. Emperor Xian's voice was filled with arrogance, and his disdainful tone towards all living beings roused anger among the spectators, who all glared furiously at him. No one insulted Emperor Xian verbally, as he had consistently proven himself through victories, establishing himself undeniably as a strong figure. Sia the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. For now, the cultivators anticipated Wuxi's response, yearning to see Emperor Xian defeated. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 844. Myriad dragons ascending to heaven. Emperor Xian's voice echoed throughout the nine-spirit continent, capturing the attention of all living beings within it. Years ago, the news of Emperor Xian challenging the celestial spirit great world had spread within the beginningless. Many were curious if Emperor Xian would eventually battle at the gates of the Wuxia sect, and to their surprise he indeed came. This indicated that even the great cultivators of the celestial spirit great world couldn't stop him. Within the continent, those cultivators in seclusion came out one after another, and more living beings gathered in the direction from where the voice came. Emperor Xian stood proudly in the sky, his long scarf fluttering like a dragon. Behind his head, 2 golden crescent moons shimmered with dazzling golden light. With each flash, the 2 golden moons grew larger, and his aura intensified accordingly. The ocean began to surge, waves overlapping, thunderclouds gathered above, and faint thunder roared. The spirit mist surrounding the 9-spirit continent also started to surge violently, as if ready to sweep towards the celestial vault, shaking the skies. Guan Tianyu watched Emperor Xian's back with furrowed brows, sensing an incredibly terrifying aura, realizing Emperor Xian hadn't been serious with him. Could it be that this number 1 prodigy under heaven is truly no match for the prodigies on the path of the Great Tao? Guan Tianyu felt angry inside, not losing his fighting spirit, but thinking about how to win next time. As Emperor Xian's aura continued to rise, the rules of heaven and earth were affected, fierce winds arose, seas churned, and the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance didn't just watch idly. They dispersed and formed a large array to prevent Emperor Xian's aura from affecting various regions of the human world. Emperor Xian's gaze was fixed on the 9-spirit continent, unable to penetrate the patch of spirit mist, making him anticipate the upcoming battle even more. He wasn't afraid of his opponent being too strong, only of the opponent not being strong enough. Currently, no one in the celestial spirit great world could satisfy him. As his gaze follows, a section of spirit mist on the edge of the 9-spirit continent began to contract inward, as if a door was slowly opening. More and more gazes and divine senses focused on that patch of spirit mist. As the spirit mist parted, a cliff was revealed. On the cliff stood countless cultivators, men and women, numbering in the thousands. The one at the front was Nzizai. Zhuang Xian, Su Han, Duan Li Zhenqin, and others stood behind Nzizai, with other disciples lined up behind them, all eyes locked on Emperor Xian. None of the Wuxia disciples' faces showed fear, instead displaying expressions of mockery, curiosity, and indifference. The great cultivators in the realm were seeing so many Wuxia disciples in one place for the first time. Each disciple possessed extraordinary grace, and their cultivation level was startling. Although many Wuxia disciples were below the level of free immortal, there were also numerous Taoist Zhangzizai immortals, profound Yuan free immortals, and even several heaven-encompassing free immortals. Sir, the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The foundation of the beginningless was revealed all at once. Those long-lived beings noticed that no second-generation disciples appeared, sparking curiosity about the strength of the Wuxia sect. Thinking carefully, it had been many years since the second-generation disciples showed themselves. It's hard to imagine how strong they are now. Is that Emperor Xian? His aura is so strong. Senior brother, which master or uncle is willing to step in? Su Han stood alongside Nzizai, asking excitedly. He had never seen such a grand spectacle, with cultivators and great demons watching from all directions, giving a sense that the world was paying attention. Guan wasn't present, so Su Han thought a second-generation disciple should step in. He had seen some of them, each with unfathomable cultivation. He even felt that his own master might be the weakest. To deal with this person, why bother our elders? Nzizai stated calmly. After speaking, he took a step forward, stopping at the edge of the cliff, standing against the wind. Emperor Xian's gaze involuntarily fell on Nzizai. He marveled at the complexity of the Wuxia sect, while Nzizai gave him a very powerful impression. I am the 3rd-generation head disciple of the beginningless, Nzizai. Since fellow Taoist wants to fight, I will oblige. Nzizai's voice resounded beneath the thunderclouds, clearly heard by all. Many great cultivators had interacted with Nzizai, though they weren't sure how strong he truly was. Today, hearing Nzizai's willingness to fight, they perked up and began to anticipate. No one dared doubt the foundation of the beginningless. As the 3rd-generation head disciple, Nzizai often traveled among the sects under the heavens, being the most familiar Wuxia disciple to the various sects under the heavens. But until now, Nzizai hadn't fought anyone, at least they hadn't seen or heard of it. I hope the beginningless will not disappoint me. Emperor Xian's voice was overwhelmingly proud, filled with immense confidence. As his words fell, he stepped toward the 9-spirit continent. The world suddenly darkened, thunderclouds erupted with countless lightning bolts, all intertwining with the 2 crescent moons behind him. At a glance, It seemed as if he had grown a pair of gigantic lightning wings, spectacular and unparalleled. As he approached the nine-spirit continent, his aura grew even stronger, each step stronger than the last. The world darkened, terrifying waves surged like the end of the world. The fierce wind came roaring at Nzazai, yet he stood immovable like Mount Tai. Su-Han watched Nzazai's back, eyes wide. It was the first time he felt Nzazai's strength. Not only him but the younger generation like Zhuang Xian and Duan Li were equally inspired, anticipating Nzazai's might. Not only were the various sects under heaven curious about Nzazai's strength, the Wuxia sect itself was equally curious. As Emperor Xian got closer to the nine-spirit continent, more and more living beings came to watch. Amidst the dark celestial sea, Emperor Xian became the most dazzling presence. Yet the Wuxia disciples standing on the cliff of the continent also exhibited a fierce courage that made it hard for any living being to judge who would win. If it were the ancestor Master Wuxia himself, Emperor Xian would be undoubtedly defeated. But now, with Nzazai stepping up, none among the viewers dared to make light judgments. Emperor Xian's gaze remained fixed on Nzazai, and Nzazai likewise focused on him. As their gaze confrontation extended, Emperor Xian's battle intent continued to grow, with his aura strengthening accordingly. The destinies of the primordial Tao Emperor and the Taoist Emperor infused into the two golden crescent moons, energizing his entire being with two completely different types of aura flames. Suddenly, Emperor Xian stepped again, his figure vanished into thin air, with the sky full of lightning paused above the vast sea. Nzazai's eyes sharpened, striking upward with his right palm, his hand twisting at the wrist, striking forward with a sky-pushing gesture. Boom! Emperor Xian materialized in the air above Nzazai, less than 100 yards apart, two immensely powerful forces of mana clashing, scattering the surging spirit mist and revealing the towering mountains of the nine-spirit continent. In an instant, Emperor Xian's brows furrowed suddenly. Before he could react, intense light burst from the roiling ocean, illuminating the world as silver dragons leaped from the sea, crashing into Emperor Xian. Despite using mana to block, he was pushed up towards the celestial vault. Endless silver dragons continued to leap from the sea, charging forward recklessly, relentlessly tearing at Emperor Xian's mana, counting sidestimble the multitudinous dragons. Emperor Xian gritted his teeth, intent on unleashing divine skills, only to find an unmovable suppressive force enveloping him, unable to teleport, leaving him to withstand with mana alone. In a blink, he was hurled through the celestial Tao light layer into the outer void, his mana fully depleted, unable to recover fast enough to sustain his expenditure. A giant dragon far larger than the rest emerged from the celestial Tao light layer, its dragon head alone equivalent to half the size of the celestial spirit great world, its mouth opening wide to swallow him whole. Deafening silvery dragon roars echoed in his ears, assailing his mind. How is this possible? Emperor Xian's eyes widened, his heart roaring in fury, and he was immediately engulfed in vast silver light. Su-Han, witnessing Nzazai's back, asked wide-eyed, "What divine skill is this?" Standing in front of him, Nzazai didn't turn back but spoke calmly, "Myriad Supreme Palm, Second Palm, Myriad Dragons Ascending to Heaven. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 845. The Change of the Future. Myriad Supreme Palm. The Second Palm. Myriad Dragons Ascending to Heaven. Su-Han felt a surge of emotions upon hearing this. He had heard of the Myriad Supreme Palm, which was said to have been passed down from their ancestor to the eldest disciple. Nobody else within the beginningless knew it, and it was said that the ancestor once said that mastering the Myriad Supreme Palm allows one to be invincible across all heavens. There were many such claims. The beginningless had too many secret skills, so Su-Han had never believed it before. But seeing it today, he believed and was even moved. He wanted to learn this skill. It wasn't just him. Other disciples of beginningless were also excitedly looking at the celestial vault. The silver light covering the sky robbed the world of color, while silver dragons continuously surged from the ocean before them, soaring upwards towards outer heaven. Myriad dragons ascending to heaven, the so-called dragons were dragon chi of the great Tao, constantly emerging and crashing into Emperor Xian, devouring his mana. The celestial Tao light layer of the celestial spirit great world was pierced through, with a silver light arc appearing from heaven to the depths of the universe, incredibly magnificent. That was the trace of the myriad dragons' sweep. Once the arc ceased to extend, Emperor Xian's aura weakened significantly. He flew out from the vast silver light, covered in blood, hair disheveled in extreme disarray. The two golden crescents attached to his chest dimmed considerably. This scene was caught by countless great cultivators. After a brief silence, a commotion erupted among the great cultivators above the ocean. Such an overbearing divine skill. To solve Emperor Xian in just one move? What kind of cultivation level does this Nzizai possess? Could it be the mythical innate golden immortal realm? CTH Novel F. IR. Et website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. No, I can feel his aura is still within the heaven-encompassing free immortal realm, but he is the primordial Tao Emperor. Carrying the destiny of both the primordial Tao Emperor and Taoist Emperor, yet unable to surpass the primordial Tao Emperor? Beginningless truly hides dragons and crouches tigers. Hearing the discussions all around, Ji Xiaoyu also had a look of surprise on her face. She knew the second-generation disciples of the Beginningless were strong, and perhaps even hid innate golden immortals, but she didn't expect even the third-generation disciples to be this powerful. Indeed, that fellow, though lazy, became incredibly strong through daily cultivation together. Guan Tianyu was equally shocked. He had battled Emperor Xian, whose profoundness once filled him with despair. He never expected such a powerful Emperor Xian to be so easily defeated by Nzizai. He had seen Nzizai before when he visited the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance, and many alliance hierarchs had personally welcomed him. But at the time he only marveled at the supreme status of Beginningless, not thinking Nzizai was particularly powerful. Now, as he gazed from afar, Nzizai stood on the cliff edge of the Nine-Spirit Continent, facing the wild wind, a stance that gave him immense shock. Is this the Beginningless? Guan Tianyu suddenly felt that Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance was just SOSO, and perhaps even the so-called Celestial Court couldn't compare to the Beginningless. Truly terrifying, among the third-generation disciples of Beginningless, many have extraordinary talents, and the future disciples also have exceptional gifts, but none can shake his position, his master, the ancestor of green light, said with genuine admiration. Everyone marveled at Nzizai's strength, while some rushed to outer heaven to check on Emperor Xian. In the depths of the universe, before the world gate, the celestial spirit god Tian Hao and Tai Immortal Monarch stood side by side, witnessing Nzizai's strike. Myriad Supreme Palm, what powerful creation, those dragons are all the power of the great Tao, Tai Immortal Monarch praised. He had interacted with Nzizai many times and had long realized this child was no ordinary, so today's display didn't surprise him too much. Tian Hao's eyes were also full of admiration. This disciple of Beginningless, surnamed In, was his sister Nzin's eldest disciple, and he naturally regarded him as his own. Upon returning, he wondered if he should teach Nzizai, but upon reconsideration, knowing Nzizai cultivated under their master, he would surely be outstanding. Indeed, the strength of the myriad supreme palm made even him want to learn it. The celestial spirit god spoke, "This Emperor Xian is not simple, with a cause and effect of the heavenly Tao behind him." Tai Immortal Monarch scoffed, "With such arrogance, he must have something to rely on." Elsewhere, Guan and Xiaolan arrived at the Xiao family city, where Xiaolan had also witnessed Nzizai's move. "Such an overbearing divine skill, did you teach it?" Xiaolan curiously asked. Guan smiled, "I created it, 7 palms in total, and this is just the second. Can you teach me?" "No, only disciples in charge can cultivate it." Guan rarely refused, as he intended to make the myriad supreme palm the hallmark secret skill of the Beginningless. Though a bit disappointed, Xiaolan didn't pester him. She then asked, "What is the origin of this Emperor Xian? What if Nzizai accidentally kills him?" Guan replied meaningfully, "He has significant backing. A powerful cause and effect were ready to fall upon Emperor Xian to help him recover, but unfortunately, it was invisibly neutralized by Guan. This cause and effect came from the Tai Shang. Tai Shang can alter the destiny of all heavens. Emperor Xian challenging the Beginningless had already caused changes in the future, staining his undefeated path. However, Guan saw Tai Shang corrected the future, preventing the news of Emperor Xian's defeat from spreading. The duel between Emperor Xian and Nzizai also sowed seeds of calamity between Guan and Tai Shang, officially bringing the celestial spirit great world into Tai Shang's view. Guan was unfazed. Though Tai Shang was strong, the only true contender was the Celestial Emperor. Currently, Tai Shang is managing the Celestial Court, with many tasks requiring his attention, leaving him unable to focus on the Celestial Spirit Great World. Emperor Xian was merely his pawn. However, sometimes pawns escaped the chessboard. This Emperor Xian not only had extraordinary talent but also harbored immense ambition. The all heavens and myriad realms were like a prison, countless pieces looking up at Zhangtian, seeking not only the position of immortal gods but also the strongest throne of the celestial emperor. Brother Gu, tell me about the geniuses from other great worlds, are there any not inferior to Emperor Xian? Xiaolan suddenly asked, her face full of expectation. Although she now stayed with the Xiao family, she had always had the heart of a strong person. Had she not failed in achieving Taoist emperor, she wouldn't have chosen to settle. Of course there are. Guan began to recount the geniuses he had observed. Emperor Xian was indeed formidable, but to call him the first of the heavenly Tao underestimated it. The heavenly Tao was vast, with countless great worlds and powerful domains, and geniuses were as numerous as stars in the sky. Guan occasionally observed other worlds, finding many talents catching his attention. In the days that followed, the news of Emperor Xian's crushing defeat by a third-generation disciple of the beginningless swept the world, and the name of Nzizai and the myriad supreme palm also spread to all cultivators' ears. On that day, Nzizai's answer to Suhan was heard by many great cultivators, spreading the name of the myriad supreme palm, with some even claiming it as the top secret skill in the celestial spirit, and for a time, Nzizai even gained renown as the world's #1. Meanwhile, the defeated Emperor Xian quietly retreated, and the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance did not trouble him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 846. Destiny Mission in the Darkness. Emperor Xian sat meditating on a red lotus throne, dressed in a plain white robe, his hair disheveled and his brows furrowed, with 2 golden crescent moons hovering around him. This was a suffocating void, in the depths of which faint flashes of lightning and dark red nebulae surged, resembling the end of the apocalypse, where everything had already turned to nothingness. Emperor Xian's face was pale. He slowly opened his eyes, raised his right hand and pulled open the robe on his chest, revealing tiny silver lines flowing like they were silver dragons. The remnant power of the myriad dragons ascending to heaven was still tormenting him, making him feel that he would hardly recover in a short time. Recalling the experience of facing the myriad dragons ascending to heaven, Emperor Xian's brows furrowed even tighter, his eyes full of unwillingness. Could it be that the primordial Tao Emperor is stronger than the Taoist Emperor? Emperor Xian muttered to himself, his tone filled with confusion. He could sense that Nzizai was the primordial Tao Emperor, and as someone who cultivated both the Taoist Emperor and another, he was dividing his focus into 2 different destinies, whereas Nzizai could channel all his energy into one great Tao destiny. In fact, earlier he had sensed that the primordial Tao Emperor's destiny had suddenly become much stronger, but the Taoist Emperor's way of cultivating through combat was much to his liking. Now he was wavering again, feeling that his dual cultivation of the Taoist Emperor might be an unwise move. Who says the primordial Tao Emperor is stronger than the Taoist Emperor? A cold and hoarse voice echoed, startling Emperor Xian, who turned his head to look, seeing a dark silhouette emerging from the depths of darkness, its form human-like but incredibly large, lightning flickering behind it, red clouds surging, making it appear even more terrifying. Emperor Xian squinted and asked, "Who are you?" "It doesn't matter who I am. What's important is that you need to know there is no great Tao destiny that can compare to the Taoist Emperor. Your failure is not due to the Taoist Emperor but because your killing intent is not strong enough." Upon hearing the words, Emperor Xian mocked, "Can the Taoist Emperor be compared to the celestial Tao immortal gods? The celestial Tao immortal gods rely on the power of the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao cannot grant them true power. Once the heavenly Tao takes back the power given to them, they will be reduced to their original form." This reply from the mysterious figure made Emperor Xian regard him with more respect, realizing he was not blindly arrogant. Emperor Xian was not of mortal origin. He had long understood the heavenly court immortals, and even knowing the truth didn't hinder his curiosity about the heavenly Tao. Although he did not deny the other's words, Emperor Xian remained vigilant towards the mysterious figure. More importantly, the other gave him an eerie feeling, one that he rarely experienced. The last existence that made him feel this way was an ancestor of an emperor clan. Their coming was certainly not to persuade him to believe the Taoist Emperor was the strongest. "Do you only respect the power of the Taoist Emperor alone?" Emperor Xian asked, simultaneously secretly employing his cultivation technique to restore himself as much as possible, ready to escape at any moment. Regardless of whether he was injured, even in peak condition, he was afraid he couldn't defeat this person. The mysterious figure stood in the depths of darkness, unmoving, with eyes seemingly piercing through time and space, watching Emperor Xian. I came to find you because you are the most promising person on the Taoist Emperor's path. I am guided by the Taoist Emperor and will grant you greater power. However, you have just happened to be frustrated and waver in your Tao heart, which displeases me. Being defeated is not terrifying. What's terrifying is that you don't reflect on yourself but instead crave your enemy's power. The words from the mysterious figure made Emperor Xian's brows tighten, rendering him unable to refute. He believed the Taoist Emperor was inferior to the primordial Tao Emperor, simply because he felt in Zizai's primordial Tao Emperor was stronger? The Taoist Emperor and primordial Tao Emperor will eventually clash, as these two great Tao destinies fundamentally conflict. You'd better abandon the primordial Tao Emperor. Upon hearing this, Emperor Xian was immediately displeased. He coldly snorted, "What right do you have to interfere with my choice? I choose the Taoist Emperor, not to become a puppet of the Taoist Emperor. From your words, it seems the Taoist Emperor is no different from the celestial Tao immortal gods, only not as mighty as the heavenly Tao. I won't interfere with your choice, just advise you. When the Taoist Emperor and primordial Tao Emperor wage war, destinies will devour each other. Having two destinies will cause backlash upon you, leading to your downfall. Whether choosing the Taoist Emperor or the primordial Tao Emperor, you need to plan early." The mysterious figure's reply made Emperor Xian calm down again. After a moment of silence, Emperor Xian asked, "Who exactly are you?" CTH Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The mysterious figure suddenly raised a hand, and a terrifying blood wind rushed towards him, causing his eyes to widen, plunging him into a trance. Emperor Xian's pupils reflected a series of battle scenes, rapidly shifting as blood-red Tao patterns gradually emerged on his forehead, like blades clashing. Not knowing how long had passed, Emperor Xian gradually came to his senses, his vision clear as if waking from a dream, taking deep breaths while clenching his right hand over his chest. He looked down, discovering the residual strength from the myriad supreme palm had dissipated. His state had unexpectedly returned to its peak. Emperor Xian's gaze became complex. The recent memory truly let him understand what the Taoist Emperor was and why the Taoist Emperor was born. Since the Taoist Emperor has such origins, what about the primordial Tao Emperor? Emperor Xian gazed at the distant mysterious figure and asked in a deep tone. The primordial Tao Emperor was merely created by a cultivator without any mission. He hoped to strengthen himself with this destiny, and one day the Taoist Emperor will find the creator, but to annihilate all primordial Tao Emperors will require every Taoist Emperor's action, including mine. I have traveled the furthest on the Taoist Emperor's path, but you have the hope to surpass me. I don't want you to hesitate or even take the wrong path." The mysterious figure's words enlightened Emperor Xian. No wonder he suddenly felt the primordial Tao Emperor had grown stronger. Upon reflection, it was because the creator had made a breakthrough. Thinking that the primordial Tao Emperor was backed by a cultivator made him feel awkward, just like he couldn't imagine the heavenly Tao was some entity's will. Then wouldn't all living beings be mockeries of the existence behind the heavenly Tao? Think carefully, I await your choice. After saying this, the mysterious figure turned and disappeared. Emperor Xian remained seated on the red lotus, quietly contemplating. Millions of years had passed since Emperor Xian's defeat, and the world had forgotten him, with new figures capturing everyone's attention. This year, Wuxia once again welcomed a new group of disciples, their mentors bringing them to pay respects to Zizai. Every new disciple must face the first disciple. It's customary, every generation of Wuxia disciples must adhere to it. In the Grand Hall, a group of Wuxia disciples gathered together, laughing and talking, while the new disciples stood in a row facing Zizai, diverse in seniority but similar in age. Their mentors weren't thinking much, all mutually complimenting each other's judgment. And Zizai surveyed these new disciples, his gaze suddenly resting on a black-clad youth among them. He narrowed his eyes, feeling inexplicably uneasy. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 847. Wuxia. The young man in black looked only about 12 or 13 years old, with a delicate appearance and an unremarkable build, but his eyes were very spirited. When he saw Zizai squint, he was so frightened that he quickly lowered his head, thinking he had offended the ancestor. Soon, the Wushiji disciples in the hall also noticed Nzazai's gaze and stopped talking, looking surprised at the young man in black. The other new disciples also became tense, sensing the subtle atmosphere, which made their hearts beat apprehensively. Could they be expelled even after stepping into Wuxia? What is your name and why do you want to join Wuxia? Nzazai spoke, his tone indifferent, making all disciples feel tremendous pressure. Everyone's eyes fell on the young man in black, including the new disciples, increasing the pressure on him. Cautiously he raised his head, faced with Nzazai's gaze, and quickly lowered it again, trembling as he answered, "My name is Wuxia, born in Yang City. I've grown up listening to the legends of Wuxia, and I want to become a Wushiji disciple, someone like Ancestor Master Wuxia." Yang City is a city on the Nine-Spirit continent, not particularly prosperous but known nevertheless. Nzazai could naturally deduce Wuxia's background, but he wanted to hear what Wuxia had to say. From his origins, Wuxia appeared without any suspicious points, as if he naturally belonged to Wuxia. To this day, Wuxia recruits disciples from the Nine-Spirit continent, which is now filled with spiritual energy, producing beings with greater talent than the celestial spirit Great World, similar to the past Immortal dynasty. Beings on the Nine-Spirit continent aspire to become Wushiji disciples. Entering Wuxia sect is the highest honor. Even though the Nine-Spirit continent is harmonious, there are also conflicts in secret. If an aristocratic family produces a Wushiji disciple, the family's status will rise significantly. Wuxia is born into such a family, and both he and his family hope that he can become a Wushiji disciple. Fearful of possibly being rejected, Wuxia felt anxious and wished he could slap himself. Why did he stare at the ancestor just now? Meanwhile, he harbored a slight grievance, thinking he wasn't deliberately disrespectful, just overly excited. Nzazai's gaze was complex. Rationally, he knew Wuxia had no problems, yet Wuxia made him feel uncomfortable, an unease he couldn't explain. His thoughts inexplicably turned to words spoken by the ancestor many years ago, that Wuxia would give birth to a great calamity. Because of the ancestor's words, he set stricter standards for recruiting disciples, meeting each new disciple personally. Nzazai took a deep breath, aware that everyone was watching him, knowing he must remain composed. Henceforth you are all Wushiji disciples. He must not bring disgrace to his family and aims to become the greatest in Wuxia, even making the legendary ancestor Master Wuxia proud of him. Little did he know, the ancestor master he dreamed of was just hundreds of miles away. Guan sat by the lake fishing. Despite the growing number of Wushiji disciples, his aura was so ethereal that divine sense couldn't detect him unless approaching closely, allowing him peace. He too was observing Wuxia. Interesting, managing to extend to the dojo. Though the process was intricate, it's indeed resourceful. Guan murmured, a faint smile appearing. Wuxia posed no issue, but Wuxia's primordial ancestor did. When alive, the primordial ancestor was invaded by the great Tao destiny of the Taoist emperor, always lurking, later joining the Nine-Spirit continent and passing on this destiny. Long ago, Guan had noticed this but did not mind, even anticipating what might transpire. He did not resist the Taoist emperor, though unfortunately the Taoist emperor disliked him. Great Tao destiny is not just between you and me. Guan murmured leisurely. At that point the fishing rod began moving, compelling him to sit up straight and start pulling the rod. After a tugging battle, he retrieved the rod with a half-transparent goldfish hooked. It transformed from spiritual energy in the lake, possessing spiritual intelligence unlike beings, and he called them lake spirits. The lake spirit struggled on the hook, and Guan removed and released it back into the lake before continuing to fish. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 848. Wuxia entered Wuxia without causing any stir within, while Nzazai and Hai Yuan only paid attention to him secretly. Sir, the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. 100 years later, Nzazai summoned Wuxia. Having grown up, Wuxia was elegant and handsome, and like most Wuxia disciples, had the demeanor of the Immortal family. He still wore black clothes, but his outfit had become more refined, with a cyan jade hairpin on his hair crown, exuding extraordinary poise. Nzazai met him on a cliff. Wuxia came up behind Nzazai and bowed to salute. Wuxia greets ancestor. Wuxia's tone was neither humble nor arrogant. Upon careful listening, one could hear a hint of flair in his voice. Since joining Wuxia, he had been cultivating and hadn't met Nzazai again, but he couldn't forget the embarrassment when he first met Nzazai. On the way here, he wondered why Ancestor had summoned him. He couldn't understand but wasn't worried because he was already a Wuxia disciple. His master and his master's master both regarded him highly. Even if the third-generation senior disciple wanted to trouble him, they would need a reason. And Nzazai, with his back to Wuxia, gazed at the distant mountains and forests and spoke, "Your talent is outstanding and your comprehension is rare for a millennium. I will make an exception to teach you divine skills. What kind of divine skill do you want to learn?" Upon hearing this, Wuxia's eyes lit up and he immediately said, "I want to learn the Myriad Supreme Palm." The Myriad Supreme Palm, which overwhelmed the Outer Heaven Emperor and gained fame throughout the land, was something Wuxia heard his family talk about in his youth. If he could join Wuxia, he must learn the Myriad Supreme Palm. The Myriad Supreme Palm can only be practiced by the Wuxia senior disciple. The so-called senior disciple is not every generation's senior disciple but the one who wields great power among them. As Nzazai spoke, he turned to look at Wuxia. He examined Wuxia and asked, "Do you think you can become the senior disciple?" "I will try hard. Since I am cultivating immortality, I have great ambitions. I don't want to live a lifetime of quiet cultivation." When Wuxia said this, his eyes were bright and fearless as he met Nzazai's gaze, full of vigor, like a sharp sword drawn from its sheath. Nzazai had to admit that he liked Wuxia's sharpness because it was something other disciples did not possess, only seen in the world's #1 prodigy. But the thought of Wuxia using Wuxi's divine skills to cause chaos in the human world gave him some discomfort. "Ancestor, I temporarily lack the qualifications to practice the Myriad Supreme Palm. Why don't you decide? Whatever you teach, I will learn. I'm not picky. I feel that only by mastering all divine skills and Taoist techniques can I reach the Ancestor's realm." Wuxia said excitedly. Mentioning the Ancestor, he clenched his fists tightly. And Nzazai nodded and said, "Then start with learning the escape skill first. Penetrating the essence of all things is seeing through all things, which will aid in your comprehension of heaven and earth." "Thank you, Ancestor." Wuxia saluted again. Thus Wuxia began to follow Nzazai in cultivation. This matter spread within Wuxia. The current generation of Wuxia disciples had been passed down for 26 generations, and although Wuxia was accepted by the 14th generation disciple, making his lineage relatively high, being specially cared for by Nzazai was rare. Everyone could feel a new star rising, and Wuxia might become a representative figure of Wuxia. Since then, many disciples took the initiative to visit Wuxia, making his pride grow ever larger. 10,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Wuxia had already become a genius disciple of Wuxia, and his fame even spread beyond the 9-spirit continent. On this day, Suhan came to the bamboo forest to visit Guan, talking about Wuxia. "This Wuxia is truly extraordinary. After merely 10,000 years of cultivating immortality, he's already a divine thought true immortal. The key is his comprehension. He can learn any divine skill or spell just by seeing it once. It's simply absurd." Suhan said, standing in front of Guan, spreading his palms, his tone helpless. Once he thought his talent was the highest, but after coming to Wuxia he found geniuses abound, and some people's talents amazed him. Wuxia's sudden rise made him feel that the foundation of the 9-spirit continent and the celestial spirit great world aren't on the same level. Guan, who was reading a book, casually said, "That's just because the divine skills he encountered were too low level. Some divine skills cannot be mastered just by seeing them once." "I know, but facing most Taoist techniques with such comprehension is already very exaggerated. I heard the senior brother personally taught him." "Ancestor, is there an arrangement of yours in this?" Suhan asked curiously. He had a good relationship with Nzazai, knowing Nzazai's character. Since Nzazai's disciples grew up, he stopped accepting disciples and wouldn't teach other disciples to cultivate. Wuxia was an exception. Everyone could feel that Nzazai had high hopes for Wuxia, and Suhan thought the same. "I am very busy and have no time to pay attention to these matters." Guan responded carelessly, then turned to a new page. Seeing his action, Suhan had many grievances he wanted to express but held back. "Is Guan busy?" Suhan used to think so, but after spending a lot of time with him, he truly felt that Ancestor was the most idle person. But it was precisely because he's the most idle that made his thoughts impossible to fathom. "Suhan, if Wuxia faces a catastrophe and I cannot intervene, what would you do?" Guan suddenly asked, his gaze never leaving the pages. Suhan, hearing this, was stunned, for he wouldn't think that Ancestor would ask meaningless questions. In an instant he thought of many possibilities and his mood sank abruptly. I am a Wuxia disciple. I must defend Wuxia even if it costs my life, Su Han said firmly. This was indeed his heartfelt sentiment. Guan could hear that he had already hypothesized numerous terrifying scenarios. Some assumptions even amused Guan. Guan glanced at him, smiled. You don't need to be tense, there will never be a situation where I cannot intervene, only whether I want to or not. Upon hearing this, Su Han breathed a sigh of relief, and then he became alert again. If Wuxia faced a catastrophe, would Ancestor have a situation of not wanting to intervene? If it were other disciples they might not think this far, but his grandfather came from the Supreme Sect. He knew of Ancestor's past with the Supreme Sect, knowing the Ancestor once supported and later abandoned the Supreme Sect. Could it be that one day Ancestor would abandon Wuxia? Guan listened to his inner voice, thinking he indeed dares to speculate. Actually, Guan had no intention of abandoning Wuxia, as he had personally established it. But if Wuxia faced troubles that disciples could solve, he wouldn't intervene. Recently, Wuxin had brought him insight, giving him more thoughts about Wuxia. Since Wuxia had grown, why not make it grow even larger? He wasn't aiming to compete, but just wanted to see if the Wuxia he founded differed from the various major sects of the heavens. 10,000 years from now, you take a group of Wuxia disciples to the path of the Great Tao for training. It's also an opportunity for your honing, Guan said softly. When Su Han heard this, his eyes immediately brightened. He had long wanted to venture onto the path of the Great Tao. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 849. The Patriarch's approval. Guan arranged for Su Han to lead the disciples to the path of the Great Tao, not with any special intention, but simply because many disciples wanted to go, so he decided to fulfill their wish. He couldn't let all the disciples stay within the beginningless forever. A cultivation lacking freedom has no meaning. Of course, Guan's change in mindset was still due to his own cultivation level's improvement, and his concerns were becoming less. Over the years, although his cultivation level hasn't changed significantly, his understanding of the Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Tao has deepened, and he is even pursuing the Saint Realm. The closer he gets to the Saint Realm, the deeper his insights become. These insights also include thoughts on how to conduct oneself. Deliberately not doing something actually lacks authenticity, acting with spontaneity is the true self. The peaceful life continues, even though the affairs of the world are constantly changing, they don't affect Guan. Millions of years later, Su Han, together with over 100 Wuxiji disciples, stepped into the 10,000 Realms Gate, heading towards the path of the Great Tao, including Wuxia. And this year, the unbeaten Emperor Ancestor sent a descendant to cultivate within the beginningless. This child was also his chosen candidate for ascension to immortality. He not only wanted this child to become an immortal god but also hoped this child would possess the identity of a Wuxiji disciple. Guan did not refuse. The unbeaten Emperor Ancestor has branches in the celestial spirit great world. Although they do not stir the winds and clouds of the world, once their foundation unfolds, it will surely be astonishing. Guan agreed because this emperor clan behaved very discreetly, which satisfied him. For Guan, this matter was merely a minor incident, not disturbing his life pace. He let Jianghu teach that emperor clan descendant. 8 million years later. Wuxia the Novel Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Su Han returned with that group of disciples. No one had fallen and Wuxia once again became the focus. He was like the Emperor Xin, possessing the destiny of both the Great Tao Emperor and the Primordial Tao Emperor. The day after he returned, Wuxia went to visit Nzizai. Nzizai had constructed a pavilion on a high peak, situated on the mountainside, providing a view of thousands of miles. Master Ancestor, I've returned. Wuxia, already a heaven-encompassing free immortal, stood in front of the table looking at Nzizai, smiling with high spirits. Nzizai scrutinized him while he faced it openly. Although the young man still carried immense arrogance, Nzizai could feel that he hadn't changed much from millions of years ago. Tell me about your experiences these years. Nzizai said, simultaneously gesturing for Wuxia to sit down. He was secretly shocked, for it hadn't been long since Wuxia's cultivation level had caught up with him. Though he still had confidence in subduing Wuxia, Wuxia's rapid growth made him somewhat uneasy. If Wuxia truly became a threat and he couldn't contain him, wouldn't it cause trouble for the Master Ancestor? Wuxia was unaware of Nzizai's thoughts. and after sitting down he began to speak incessantly about his years of experience. Quickly, and Zizai too was drawn in by his experiences. To become a great Tao Emperor, one must engage in battles on the Emperor Road, competing with Tao seekers of the same realm. The great Tao destiny would guide him to find opponents, and amidst battles he would reflect upon the myriad heavens, cultivating the path of the primordial Tao Emperor. In the 8 million years he and other Wuxia disciples experienced many things together, including grudges and emotions. He even recounted a portion of his marriage. The woman from the Tai great world indeed moved my heart, but I won't forget my original intention, so I chose to defeat her, not only ending her Emperor Road but also severing my bond with her. I don't want to go to the Tai great world. I belong to the beginningless. All my accomplishments should be rewarded to the beginningless, not taken away by others on the road. When saying this, Wuxia's face was full of determination, as if trying hard to convince himself. And Zizai had no comment on this matter because he too once severed this type of emotion. He had already surpassed the mortal spirit, not driven by instinctive desires. Ordinary emotions seldom moved him. Wuxia looked up at Zizai and smiled, saying, "Actually, I was able to achieve the great Tao Emperor thanks to the fellow disciples. If it weren't for them desperately protecting me every time I got injured, I would have died long ago." Truly, the so-called Emperor Road seems like a battle of heaven's chosen ones, but it's actually a contest of forces. Other heaven's chosen ones also have their own forces supporting them. But I've observed so many forces and feel that our beginningless is still the best, pure and simple, without so many entangled interests, without jealousy among disciples, only genuine happiness for fellow disciples. And Zizai finally showed a smile and asked, "Do you truly think so?" Initially, when Wuxia wanted to go to the path of the great Tao, he was very troubled. However, many came to persuade him, all saying that Wuxia's talent shouldn't be wasted, that he should go out and venture. He didn't have enough reasons to refuse, so in the end he agreed. Throughout the 8 million years he often worried that Wuxia might turn bad, but it seemed that wasn't the case. He suddenly wondered if he had judged incorrectly? The threat is not Wuxia, maybe it's due to Wuxia like his disciples or descendants. Of course, Master Ancestor, I plan to preach my insights to other disciples. What do you think? Would it violate any rules? Wuxia responded without hesitation. And Zizai naturally had no objections. In his view, the great Tao Emperor and primordial Tao Emperor weren't vastly different, just different paths of cultivation. If Wuxia disciples could have more choices, that would be even better. He was very pleased with Wuxia's broad-mindedness, so he decided to personally help Wuxia establish a dojo for disciples to come and listen to teachings. In the days that followed, Wuxia smoothly preached, his teachings benefiting many disciples, greatly enhancing his status and prestige, and his deeds on the path of the great Tao became widely known. One evening when Guan returned to the mountaintop courtyard, he overheard Celestial Demon Child, Shenzhen and Shengguansiener discussing Wuxia, feeling that Wuxia was outstanding, more brilliant than past disciples, even more exceptional than Tianhao. Tianhao had displayed his talent the moment he left the beginningless, but Wuxia, despite having already become a heaven-encompassing free immortal, remained steadfast in the beginningless. Moreover, Wuxia's cultivation speed indeed surpassed all Wuxia disciples. Celestial Demon Child asked Guan for his thoughts on Wuxia, and he simply gave a brief compliment. Once he returned inside, the three women remarked that it's true he doesn't care about his junior's accomplishments. Indeed, after all, he is too strong. Thus, Wuxia became the most outstanding existence among Wuxia disciples, and afterward, whenever Zizai went out, he would take him along. Wuxia would also spar with heaven's chosen ones and great powers from various great heaven and earth sects, both showcasing the foundation of the beginningless and deterring the ambition of those sections. The beginningless wouldn't engage in conquest, but if anyone attempted to disrupt the heavens and earth, the beginningless wouldn't stand by idly. Competition among forces can proceed, but there mustn't be any evil demon methods sacrificing all living beings and slaughtering innocent spirits. For Wuxia, life became glorious, yet he always felt regretful inside. He hadn't had a real conversation with the ancestor, they only occasionally passed by each other. Without the ancestor's recognition, he always felt he wasn't strong enough and couldn't be considered a true genius. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 850. A moment's difference rumble. In the dim cosmic void, the sound of thunder echoed, overwhelmingly oppressive. Xu and Zhang Buku, clad in golden battle armor, soared through the clouds. Their gaze was fixed on the depths of the void, where red clouds surged, seemingly like a massive and terrifying demon bearing its claws and fangs. This realm is at the edge of the heavenly Tao, and the destiny here is weak. Occasionally, chaos evil demons invade. We must be extremely cautious this time. Once we find the life-heart mysterious iron, well, withdraw immediately. Suyu turned his head to Zhang Buku and earnestly said. Zhang Buku rolled his eyes and snapped, "Whenever have you not been the more reckless one between us?" Suyu laughed and said, "I'm just worried you might become conceited after your breakthrough." As they bantered, they flew onward, their divine sense sweeping across the void, scanning one meteor after another. After a long while, the two arrived at a dark red void, dotted with red spots and intertwined lightning. There were not only meteors here but also pieces of broken continents and even remnants of ancient, colossal buildings floating. Zhang Buku suddenly felt uneasy, as if a terrifying power was secretly watching them, making him even more vigilant. Suyu raised his right hand and wiped his forehead, where a vertical eye opened, bursting with golden light, creating multiple golden eye shadows. The two continued forward in silence. "The life-heart mysterious iron is over there." Suyu suddenly spoke. His figure flashed, appearing out of thin air on a meteor, which seemed small from afar but felt like a vast and desolate land upon his landing. Before him lay a massive iron stone reflecting cold light, like the blade of a giant sword piercing the ground, towering 1,000 feet high. Zhang Buku joined Suyu by his side, his face showing delight upon seeing the life-heart mysterious iron. Suyu wasted no time and raised his hand, attempting to extract the life-heart mysterious iron, but his expression changed the next second. The life-heart mysterious iron trembled but remained firmly on the ground. Frowning, Zhang Buku also raised his hand, using his mana to assist Suyu. Yet, even combined efforts could not pull the iron from the ground, as if a formidable hand was dragging it below. "No, we must abandon this piece," Zhang Buku said solemnly, feeling certain that continuing would lead to disaster. Suyu replied seriously, "There is certainly danger further ahead. The best outcome is taking this piece. Persist a little longer and if unsuccessful then abandon." The golden eye on Suyu's forehead opened wide, and a beam of golden light shone on the life-heart mysterious iron, a golden stream flowing down its surface and penetrating the soil. Rumble, the ground began to quake. More precisely, the entire meteor trembled as though about to explode. Suyu's face changed drastically. He instantly grasped Zhang Buku's wrist, carrying him away. Zhang Buku, momentarily flustered, pulled out a divine weapon with his other hand. An unimaginable pressure descended, darkening the void further, pressing upon Zhang Buku and Suyu, who instinctively unleashed all their mana to resist. "We are no longer immortal gods. If we die, we are truly consigned to oblivion." Suyu gritted his teeth, a treasure tower appearing on his hand. He raised it and it emitted azure light enveloping them, yet the pressure remained intense and their flight speed slowed significantly. "Need you say it? I told you to stop earlier but you didn't listen." Sarch * the Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Zhang Buku muttered with darkened expression, having experienced such situations countless times, almost used to them. Then their vision suddenly darkened. Zhang Buku instinctively looked up, seeing a colossal dark hand descending towards them. Even though they hadn't halted, the hand remained overhead as if their flight was ineffective. Grinding his teeth, Zhang Buku tightly gripped his divine weapon and struck upwards despite knowing the disparity in strength. He resolved to fight. Meanwhile, Jianghu, far away on the immortal-seeking island in the celestial spirit great world, observed Zhang Buku's calamity within an auction. Named Buku yet suffering endlessly. "Oh my dear disciple, truly hard to safeguard you," Guan murmured, seated in a private room of a pavilion, where translucent curtains allowed him a view of the terrace outside. On the terrace, a cultivator was showcasing auction items, while the other rooms were shrouded by curtains, appearing engulfed in dark mist from outside, obscuring their interiors. Guan was not there to buy anything, just to enjoy the spectacle. The calamity that befell Zhang Buku drew his attention. Zhang Buku had cultivated in the celestial extreme 9 heavens for years, recently breaking through to the innate golden immortal realm. He and Suyu ventured to that realm to seek materials for crafting supreme treasures. Having forged the Vajra undying body, his strength far exceeded his realm, necessitating a fitting supreme treasure to reveal his divine skill's power. They faced misfortune not due to bad luck but premeditated targeting. Dark Heavenly Court. More precisely, the Dark Heavenly Court targeted Suyu, not Jianghu. Acting was Emperor Bone Profound Venerable, whose cultivation level was Mixed Element Profound Venerable Immortal. Even if Suyu unleashed his Heavenly Sun origin, he was no match for such a foe. Guan didn't immediately intervene to rescue Jianghu, having foreseen Jianghu's future. Though Jianghu would endure hardship under Emperor Bone Profound Venerable, he would also gain substantial opportunities, leading to a surge in cultivation level. Even if Jianghu became tainted by the Dark Heavenly Court's destiny, Guan knew ways to extricate him from the sea of suffering. Guan looked at Emperor Bone Profound Venerable, his sentiments starkly different from their previous encounter. During their last confrontation, though Emperor Bone Profound Venerable wasn't his match, now, everything about Emperor Bone Profound Venerable was apparent to him. He could dictate his fate and negate his past. When Emperor Bone Profound Venerable led the Dark Heavenly Court against the Celestial Court, the Celestial Emperor likely felt similar. In Chaos or the Heavenly Tao, Emperor Bone Profound Venerable's strength was formidable, yet to Guan and the Celestial Emperor he was akin to a mortal spirit. Guan pondered whether higher-level existences viewed him and the Celestial Emperor similarly. Currently he didn't sense such power, but he would assume it existed. Such invisible pressure kept him grounded. Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Tao wasn't enough for him. He aimed to not only surpass Emperor Bone Profound Venerable by one great realm but 2, 3 for even more. As long as life evolution continues, his limits won't exist. If you make the right choice for him, there's a path to life. If you choose wrongly, if the Celestial Emperor doesn't destroy you, then I will. Relaxed in his chair, Guan propped his face with one hand, speaking softly. Everyone possesses myriad fates. A single thought can alter their destiny. Guan kept all of Emperor Bone Profound Venerable's potential fates in view. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 851. Surpassing the Son of Heaven. Jianghu felt like he was having a long and indistinct dream, in which he was very tired, not knowing what he was doing, as if some terrifying presence was continuously chasing him. Finally, his consciousness detached from that heavy dream and began to awaken. He opened his eyes, and what came into his view was the endlessly high gray sky, clouds layered circle upon circle, making the sky appear so distant. He widened his eyes, suddenly sat up, and discovered he was sitting on the water's surface, with a sense of grounded stability beneath him, as if it were solid ground. He focused his gaze and saw at the end of the water surface a vast fog, while in front of the fog Suyu stood facing away from him. He stood up and asked, "Suyu, are you okay?" Suyu did not answer him, nor did he turn around, which made Jianghu frown. His divine sense had already dispersed, but he could not touch that fog. He did not know what was hidden within it. The divine sense swept in other directions, finding no signs of life for the time being, which made him suspect even more that an unknown and terrifying existence was hidden in the fog. Seeing that Suyu was still not turning around, Jianghu hesitated for a moment before stepping forward. His divine sense could perceive Suyu's expression. Suyu was not lost in a trance but was frowning, his eyes fixed on the front, seemingly observing something. Jianghu came beside Suyu and asked softly, "What are you looking at? Why are you not answering me?" Suyu gazed ahead and said in a deep voice, "Standing here, do you think it will be bad? The real trouble is about to start, and we have nowhere to escape." Upon hearing this, Jianghu looked ahead. As he watched, he found the murky fog had become clear. Deep within the fog seemed to be a small mountain, atop which sat a mysterious figure, with a languid posture but exuding an overwhelming arrogance. Looking at this figure, Jianghu suddenly felt a strong urge to kneel and worship. He struggled to control this emotion, which made his whole body stiff. He stared at that figure, falling into a trance, becoming as unresponsive as Suyu. Through the fog, that mysterious figure sitting on the small mountain was none other than the Emperor Bone Profound Venerable. Emperor Bone Profound Venerable still maintained his form of white bone, wearing a dragon head golden crown, with beads gently swaying in the wind, and a dark golden long spear standing behind him, leaning against his back. At this moment, Emperor Bone Profound Venerable was scrutinizing Jianghu. He initially came for Suyu, but he discovered Jianghu was not ordinary. This child's destiny had clearly been altered multiple times, and furthermore he was brewing a special kind of fortune. Compared to Suyu, Jianghu unexpectedly held greater potential. Born of mortal spirit, yet able to surpass the Son of Heaven. Emperor Bone Profound Venerable felt it would be a pity to kill this child directly, perhaps he could be nurtured. Though the creatures of the dark heavenly court could also reproduce in terms of talent, the geniuses of the heavenly Tao were still superior. To truly overthrow the heavenly court, greater strength must be accumulated. Emperor Bone Profound Venerable recalled the previous battle. The celestial emperor did not even appear, yet he was defeated by a celestial Tao Venerable. Moreover, before this he was defeated by a mysterious being. As a primordial profound venerable immortal, he had suffered 2 defeats in a row. He could not accept this fact. After ending the war with the heavenly court, he temporarily left the dark heavenly court to seek his own chances. He had his eyes on the Son of Heaven's root bones, aiming to explore the power of the celestial emperor through him. Unexpectedly, capturing the Son of Heaven led to an unexpected joy. Emperor Bone Profound Venerable pondered while increasing his own pressure of cause and effect, intending to test Jianghu and Suyu. On the other side, Guan had already returned to Wuxia, and after confirming that Jianghu would not encounter any trouble in the short term, he no longer paid attention. That plane had already detached from the heavenly Tao. The world contained rules that isolated the probing of cause and effect, making it difficult even for a Tao Extreme Daluo Immortal to find it, but for Guan he could step right in. Moreover, Guan could transcend time. Even if Emperor Bone Profound Venerable killed Jianghu, Guan could cross to the time before Jianghu's death. This is the power of the Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Tao. Of course, the Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Tao cannot change his past before reaching this realm. When Guan reached the level of Supreme Emperor of Ultimate Merging Tao, everything in the past became illusory belonging to his past, but others cannot probe into this past, nor traverse to the past to kill him. Returning to the courtyard, Guan saw Zhen Qin coming over, chatting with Shen Zhen. Upon seeing Guan return, Zhen Qin quickly stood up and bowed to Guan. "I've told you countless times, no need for formalities between us," Guan said with a smile, one that was kindly, instantly relaxing Zhen Qin quite a bit. She smiled sheepishly and followed with, "Master, I came to find you because I wish to enter the 10,000 Realms Gate, to travel and explore a bit. What do you think?" The 10,000 Realms Gate is the most magnificent structure on the 9-spirit continent, leading to all heavens and myriad realms, more transformative than the World Gate deep in the universe. However, the 10,000 Realms Gate only allows exit, but no entry. Once you leave through it, you'll have to find another way to return. Guan casually replied, "If you want to go, go ahead. I won't stop you." Nowadays, Wuxia disciples are spread across the 3,000 great worlds and various domains. Some perish, some take root and establish their own sections. Guan will not interfere as long as they make their choice. Zhen Qin is different from other disciples. If she ventures out, Guan will surely watch over her secretly. He is not worried about Zhen Qin making a move. He only needs a thought to resolve all the troubles Zhen Qin will encounter next. "Master, although I want to leave, I'm not in a hurry to go. Can you see if there's anything I can do for you? Leaving just like that, not knowing when I can return. My conscience would be uneasy because I haven't been able to repay you yet. Of course, if I gain great fortune someday, I will definitely return." Zhen Qin came to Guan playfully, her smile journeying his thoughts back over 1 billion years ago, when she was still struggling in the outer Taishin sect. Guan raised his hand, ruffled her hair and said with a smile, "Master doesn't need you to repay anything, don't overthink. In the future, if you encounter difficulties you can't solve, just call out to Master, and Master will have Wuxia Divine Sparrow come to your aid." As the words fell, a 7-colored rainbow descended from the sky, landing on Guan's shoulder, none other than the Wuxia Divine Sparrow. The Wuxia Divine Sparrow tilted its head to look at Zhen Qin, its eyes lively and innocent like a child's. See Tich Novel Fire, net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Zhen Qin couldn't help but ask curiously, "Is the Wuxia Divine Sparrow really that powerful?" She suddenly recalled a legend. During the Son of Heaven struggle, a divine sparrow with a glow of 7 colors saved the 3,000 great worlds. Could it be that the Divine Sparrow was the Wuxia Divine Sparrow? Yet, looking at the Wuxia Divine Sparrow on Master's shoulder, she found it hard to imagine this little creature possessing such powerful strength. Guan laughed. "Naturally, the divine beings I raise are surely powerful. Moreover, you will meet your elder Liya later. If he gets injured, you can tell him. If he can't hold on, just come to Wuxia. Wuxia can satisfy his ambition to become stronger." If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 852. The Calamity returns. Even though she received Guan's promise of protection, Zhen Qin did not let down her guard. Before entering the 10,000 Realms Gate, she chose to enter a lengthy seclusion. Time continued to pass. Following an Xin, another innate golden immortal emerged within the beginningless, none other than the Blood Prison Great Saint. The breakthrough of the Blood Prison Great Saint caused quite a stir, sparking a pursuit of becoming innate golden immortals within the beginningless. Now in the Taoist field of the beginningless, the number of heaven-encompassing free immortals surpassed 50. Excluding second-generation disciples, everyone else is among the most outstanding talents of each generation, not inferior even compared to past figures like Tian Hao, Zhao Rushan, Emperor Tianhong, and Yuan Luo. In the midst of this trend, Zhen Qin quietly entered the 10,000 Realms Gate, which Su Han only found out about afterward, leaving him very concerned for Zhen Qin. 20 million years later, someone achieved the innate golden immortal realm, shaking the entire dojo. It was none other than the 15th generation disciple Wuxia. He was the youngest innate golden immortal within the beginningless, making any genius pale in comparison. Even second-generation disciples came out of seclusion to witness him. Wuxia crossed the tribulation within the dojo with an earth-shattering commotion. Upon successfully crossing it, he continued to consolidate his cultivation, attracting many disciples to observe. In the courtyard, Guan was sitting on a chair in front of the artifact refining cauldron, one hand holding a book and the other controlling the Taiching True Fire underneath the cauldron. SAR the Novel Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. A group of disciples entered the yard, still talking about Wuxia. The fact that a 15th generation disciple surpassed many second generation disciples to achieve the innate golden immortal first truly surprised them. They had always paid attention to Wuxia and believed he had unparalleled talent, yet when Wuxia surpassed them they felt it was unreal. Such a cultivation speed was truly exaggerated. And Zizai also came. He had not yet achieved the innate golden immortal realm but was still genuinely happy for Wuxia. He once worried that Wuxia would become a scourge for the beginningless, but after tens of millions of years together, he believed Wuxia would not be that scourge. And Zizai quickly approached Guan, bowed and excitedly said, "Ancestor, Wuxia really achieved the innate golden immortal." Guan did not look at him, only responding with a hum. And Zizai noticed spiritual energy surging within the artifact refining cauldron. Bravely he asked, "Ancestor, Wuxia hasn't done any great deeds, but he's now a genius representative among the disciples of the beginningless. Do you think you could grant him a Tao treasure?" The Tao treasures Guan gave them were exceptionally powerful. Outside they had never encountered treasures stronger than Tao treasures. Tao treasures could not only facilitate combat but also help them cultivate and guide them in understanding the great Tao. Tao treasures have become the highest award within the beginningless. And Zizai had always known of Wuxia's desire for the ancestor's approval. He secretly wondered why the ancestor gave special care to Su Han and Duanli but never showed interest in a talent like Wuxia. Achieving the innate golden immortal is indeed impressive, and the Tao treasure within this cauldron was crafted for him. Guan replied. He neither particularly favored nor disliked Wuxia and naturally wouldn't suppress him. Wuxia's achievement of the innate golden immortal indeed invigorated the beginningless disciples, deserving of a reward. Upon hearing this, and Zizai was taken aback, asking, "Ancestor, you opened the cauldron millions of years ago, could it be that you foresaw he would successfully break through?" Guan glanced at him and said brusquely, "I've long told you, all your futures are in my eyes. I also know you're about to achieve the innate golden immortal too." And Zizai scratched his head, offering an awkward smile. Although he admired the ancestor, when the ancestor displayed abilities beyond his comprehension, it continued to astound him. Other second-generation disciples heard that Zizai was close to reaching the innate golden immortal and gathered around him. "Well done, you rascal." And Xingtian, who shared the same surname, punched Zizai. Being a descendant of An Hao, he had followed Guan in cultivation for over 100 million years, yet hadn't found a chance to break through to the innate golden immortal, and he couldn't help but admire this junior. Celestial Cyan, Tian Bai, Jianghu, Blood Prison Great Saint, and others also praised Zizai, making him feel embarrassed. In front of his juniors he was the stern senior brother and ancestor, but in front of his seniors he was always uneasy. Guwen did not interrupt their discussion. Blood Prison Great Saint even asked him for his opinion on Wuxia. What is there to evaluate? He's the greatest genius in the history of the beginningless. Is there anyone who doubts it? Guwen replied casually, leaving everyone speechless. Months later, Wuxia had finished consolidating his cultivation, and on his way back to the cave mansion, he heard other disciples mention Guwen's words. The greatest genius in all of history. Wuxia felt both elated and terrified. He had never had a one-on-one encounter with the ancestor and was unclear about what kind of person the ancestor was. All along he behaved conspicuously just to attract the ancestor's attention, but he had never succeeded. Now, having truly received the ancestor's praise, he instead felt a bit flustered. Afraid it was a jest, he asked many people, and even Nzazai confirmed that the ancestor indeed said so, leaving him in immense satisfaction. He really wanted to meet the ancestor but didn't dare to visit proactively. In the following days, he would deliberately or inadvertently stroll around the mountain path Guwen usually passed by. When he encountered Guwen, all he received was a slight nod, making him hesitant to approach. During each encounter, Wuxia could only watch Guwen leave, inwardly annoyed at his lack of courage. Guwen didn't intentionally cold-shoulder Wuxia. After all, he did nod at him. He could hear Wuxia's inner thoughts but couldn't possibly go out of his way to chat with him. He genuinely wasn't interested in Wuxia as a person, just not sharing common interests. Wuxia was entirely a cultivation fanatic, neither reading books, drawing, nor fishing. He was simply uninteresting. A century later, Wuxia completely gave up on the idea of seeking out the ancestor. He decided to dedicate himself once more, continuing to enter closed-door cultivation. Achieving the innate golden immortal was not enough. He would continue to break through. He wanted the ancestor to personally summon him, to hear the ancestor praise him with his own ears. This goal invigorated Wuxia greatly, making him train even more diligently than before his breakthrough into the innate golden immortal realm. On this day towards the end of spring, Nzazai came to the lakeside to meet Guwen. This time, Guwen had actively summoned him. This was something Wuxia dreamed of, but for Nzazai, it was a source of pressure. Guwen rarely sought him out in this manner, so being called alone this time, something major must have happened. Sure enough, just after he finished bowing, he heard the first sentence from the ancestor which made his expression change hugely. The calamity of the 3,000 great worlds is here again. This time it will affect the beginningless unlike before. Hearing these words, Nzazai wasn't surprised because the peaceful times had lasted too long, so any disturbance was understandable. Where does this calamity come from and why will it affect the beginningless? Nzazai hurriedly asked. Guwen replied, this time the calamity originates from within the celestial court and involves the Son of Heaven. Jianghu is the reincarnation of the Son of Heaven and has already returned to the celestial spirit great world. If someone comes to seize him, do you think the beginningless can stand by indifferently? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 853, Marshal of Heaven, the Celestial Court. Jianghu. With these two names appearing together, Nzazai immediately understood that the impending calamity would be even greater than the previous power struggle among the Sons of Heaven. Guwen then briefly discussed the situation regarding the Heavenly Emperor, without revealing too much, but ensuring that Nzazai understood what he would face next, while advising Nzazai not to disclose the matter and simply focus on planning his strategy to manage the calamity. Nzazai grasped Guwen's true intention. This was both a calamity for Wuxia and a trial set by the ancestor. He felt no pressure but was instead filled with determination. The ancestor would never test him without reason. Once he succeeded, the ancestor would undoubtedly reward him, assisting him to advance further and faster on his cultivation path. Alright, go back and cultivate. Guwen concluded their conversation, and Nzazai immediately paid his respects and took his leave. After Nzazai departed, Guwen remained by the lakeside, continuing to fish. In his eyes, the lake's surface reflected scenes of various futures. In the future, immortal gods would descend to the human world to slaughter the immortal cultivation sect, under the pretense of eradicating chaos evil demons. This was a tactic aimed at Shenyuan human venerable, who, when facing the overwhelming power of the Heavenly Emperor, would have no choice but to accept the immortal gods cleansing the human world. The masses, unaware of the celestial court's internal conflicts, would blame the disasters brought by the celestial court on Shenyuan Human Venerable, causing his faith to plummet and eventually leading to his immortal position being undermined until it was stripped away by Tsangtian. Without his immortal position, the Heavenly Emperor would have countless ways to eliminate Shenyuan Human Venerable, while also reclaiming control over the 3,000 great worlds to establish a new order. The Heavenly Emperor's methods were truly ruthless and merciless. Many immortal gods believed the Heavenly Emperor resembled the Celestial Emperor the most, prompting Guan to wonder if the Celestial Emperor had once done similar things. Perhaps the 3,000 great worlds truly harbored chaos evil demons, yet the Heavenly Emperor merely desired to leave the inhabitants of the 3,000 great worlds destitute. For the sake of power struggles, he trampled on all living beings carelessly, a behavior that Guan could not condone. However, there were countless individuals like the Heavenly Emperor, and Guan realized that if he tried to manage them all, he would never have a moment of peace. Evil is itself a part of the world, guiding toward good is the righteous Tao, but evil cannot be eradicated. Guan would not extend his responsibility to cover the 3,000 great worlds. Protecting the celestial spirit great world was sufficient. Great calamities are ordeals that all beings need to undergo. Life is not always smooth for every living creature, and Guan wanted to see how Wuxia would perform in this great calamity. Since the end of the power struggle among the sons of heaven, the number of Wuxiji disciples had doubled, seemingly harmonious, but all under the guise of Wuxi's strength. Of course, for Guan, this great calamity also felt like a grand drama. Though the Heavenly Emperor acted against the 3,000 great worlds, he underestimated their essence. Little did he know, this conflict would exceed his expectations. Chaos evil demons would indeed emerge, and even the celestial Tao Venerable would get involved. Guan was quite hesitant about whether to engage in a battle with the Celestial Emperor. Once he appeared openly with his grandeur, the Celestial Emperor would surely appear. According to his nature, he would definitely not engage in a battle unless he felt assured, and it wouldn't be stable unless he was a layer higher in the great realm above his enemy. Yet he had formed a bond with the Celestial Emperor during reincarnation, and it would be regrettable not to spar with the Celestial Emperor in the same realm. Although he hadn't yet found the opportunity for a breakthrough, his intuition told him that if he did, the Celestial Emperor could never catch up. Forget it. Safety is the most important. Guan decided he couldn't define the Celestial Emperor with imagination. He must consider the Celestial Emperor as the strongest, most evil enemy in order to prepare for any situation. Encountering a less malignant Celestial Emperor would be optimal. In thoughts, overestimate your opponent as much as possible. Guan thought while simulating the future. In the bright cosmic void, devoid of stars, only fragments of luminous clouds existed, some like the creation god mountain, others resembling divine beasts crouching, extraordinarily serene. Deep within the void, atop a sea of clouds stood a palace with red eaves, incessantly emitting golden glow. Above the door hung a placard engraved with Great World Divine Palace. Inside the palace, Shenyuan Human Venerable sat cross-legged on the lotus seat atop the high platform, his mana spreading, displaying a heaven and earth Dharma image behind him. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the entrance, reverberating within the hall. Shenyuan Human Venerable slowly opened his eyes, gazing at the visitor, his brow furrowed. A man clad in silver battle armor approached, two large flags inserted on his back, a miniature flood dragon perched atop his crown, spirit mist rising at his feet, his entire presence imposing. The Marshal of Heaven. Shenyuan Human Venerable enunciated the visitor's title. Your Highness Shenyuan, I am here at the command of the Supreme Heavenly Monarch. The Marshal of Heaven advanced with the stride of a dragon and tiger, his voice arriving even before his person reached the steps, strong and unyielding, remaining unabashed even before the Son of Heaven. Shenyuan Human Venerable watched him, observing him approach the steps. Despite the Marshal of Heaven looking up at him in admiration, he felt a palpable pressure. What does the Heavenly Monarch command? Shenyuan Human Venerable asked. Sichuan Old Immortal hasn't returned? Did an incident occur? Shenyuan Human Venerable anticipated this day since the Heavenly Emperor assumed power, but he hadn't expected it to come so swiftly, and even deploying the Marshal of Heaven. The Marshal of Heaven was a supreme immortal, leading all celestial gods. In cultivation level, both were in the Miaojin Daluo immortal realm, yet the Marshal of Heaven had reached the pinnacle of this realm, possibly stepping into the next great realm, which was the immortal Dao Peak. Sarthan of Fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The Marshal of Heaven spoke emotionlessly, Since the dark heavenly court was repelled, the heavenly monarch has been divining the remnants of the dark heavenly court, foreseeing that the 3,000 great worlds concealed the dark heavenly court's chess pieces, requiring complete eradication. He will deploy heavenly soldiers and generals to investigate the 3,000 great worlds, and you'll need to accompany me, as there was once contact between immortal gods and the dark heavenly court. Upon hearing this, Xianyuan Human Venerable was instantly incensed, eyes wide, roaring angrily, "Impudence! I am the son of heaven, child of the celestial emperor, how could I collude with the dark heavenly court?" The Marshal of Heaven replied calmly, "Emperor Jianghu dissipated the essence of his main body, transferring the origin into his avatar, which has already merged with the dark fortune." Hearing this, the furious Xianyuan Human Venerable was dismayed. How could this, Xianyuan Human Venerable suddenly lost words? Possible betrayal by the Son of Heaven conferred the Marshal of Heaven with the right to bring him back to the celestial court. However, Xianyuan Human Venerable could not fathom why the Son of Heaven would betray the celestial court. Could it be for the position of the celestial emperor? But Emperor Jianghu had no interest in the position of the celestial emperor. He even disliked participating in the power struggles of the Sons of Heaven. He had seen Emperor Shanji's avatar during his conflict with the great immortal divine Yuan. Immediately after gaining power, such betrayal from a Son of Heaven surprised Xianyuan Human Venerable, feeling something was amiss. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 854, Battle of the Human God. Xianyuan Human Venerable's face was fluctuating between light and shade, and the Marshal of Heaven did not urge him, patiently waiting for his decision. For a long time, Xianyuan Human Venerable let out a breath of turbid air, stood up and walked towards the steps, with each step his sharpness fading away. When he descended the steps, he appeared utterly desolate, stopping beside the Marshal of Heaven. "Marshal of Heaven, you are the commander of heavenly gods, having made countless contributions to the celestial court, and are regarded as the war god by all living beings. I hope that in the coming years, you can bring less suffering to the 3,000 great worlds." Xianyuan Human Venerable said softly, well aware of the consequences of the heavenly emperor sending immortal gods into the 3,000 great worlds. Unless an unforeseen event occurs, he, unable to touch the 3,000 great worlds, can only watch the lives suffer, shaking their faith in him. But he had no way to resist, not to mention he was no match for the Marshal of Heaven. Once he resists, the heavenly emperor could lodge a complaint with Zhangtian, suppressing him with the celestial Tao, and his end would be even more miserable. The Marshal of Heaven showed no expression, not looking at Xianyuan Human Venerable, he only responded softly, "I am also a celestial court immortal god, I have my duties, I listen to the celestial mandate, but will also uphold the immortal position." Upon hearing this, Xianyuan Human Venerable's lips curled up, and he continued stepping forward. "All parties of the celestial court say that among the new gods, only the Marshal of Heaven has the hope to become the celestial Tao Venerable. Now it seems you indeed have such boldness." The Marshal of Heaven turned and followed Xianyuan Human Venerable away, his expression unchanged from beginning to end. A light shone through the great world divine palace's door, lengthening their shadows as they gradually disappeared into the golden light. The immortal gods are about to investigate the 3,000 great worlds, and only Guan and Nzazai know of this. Not even Tai Immortal Monarch, Celestial Spirit God and other immortal gods are aware. In the blink of an eye, another 7 million years passed by. At noon on this day, Guan stood at the edge of a cliff on the mountain peak where he resided, looking up at the sky. It's finally coming. Guan saw a heavenly ascension stairs appearing in the void of a certain great thousand world, and immortal gods stepping down from it. Some of these immortal gods opened their right hands, revealing a celestial army exceeding 100,000 in number, flying out like locusts, swiftly heading in all directions of the universe. Leo wore a plain white robe with loose hair, pale face. He looked at Jin Qin, smiled and said, "This city is no simple place. The brews here are all immortal products. Don't be deceived by such a small bottle, its price is not low." Jin Qin raised the wine glass on the table, toasted Leo with it and drank it all in one go. She put down the glass and asked with concern, "Uncle Master, did you encounter any trouble? Why is your aura so chaotic?" Now, Leah had already become a heaven-encompassing free immortal, with a cultivation higher than Jin Qin's, yet Jin Qin could feel his unstable aura, showing his injuries were not light. Liya shook his head with a smile. It's nothing serious. On the path of the great Tao there are countless opportunities. Conflict is inevitable. Sometimes encountering Taoist emperors or primordial Tao emperors is bad luck. Don't worry, such injuries are nothing to me. In front of the junior Zhenqin, he could not show weakness, lest she return to tell Guan about it. To dispel Zhenqin's skepticism, Liya proactively narrated his recent grudges. Of course, the conclusion of the matters naturally ended in a grand manner. Dare to provoke me even though I come from the mortal realm, I will not tolerate them. Liya boasted enthusiastically, spreading his arms, supporting them on the table edges, showcasing his demeanor as a great power. Zhenqin was silent for a moment, then said, Uncle Master, if you can't endure it, you can return to Wuxia. My master said that there are opportunities for you to grow stronger in Wuxia. There's no need to struggle so hard. At this, Liya's smile froze. He paused, coughed awkwardly. Why would I struggle? Such carefree and freewheeling life is exactly what I desire. Don't overthink it. When you return, tell your master I am fine. He need not worry, and tell him to be cautious. Who knows, next time we meet, I might have surpassed him in cultivation. After hearing this, Zhenqin couldn't help but ask, Uncle Master, what is your current cultivation level? Liya replied proudly, I have already attained heaven-encompassing free immortal. Citich novel, Fr. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Before he left the celestial spirit great world, the heaven-encompassing free immortal was the most powerful realm. After hearing this, Zhenqin mourned for Liya in her heart. The blood prison great saint, that ox, had already attained innate golden immortal. Uncle Master, why do you trouble yourself so? She wanted to spread this matter, yet felt it inappropriate, as the blood prison great saint had previously mentioned wanting to teach Liya a lesson because Liya did not respect him when he was an ox. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 855. Before the great change. Until the moment they parted, Zhenqin couldn't reveal the true situation of Wuxia, because Liya wasn't part of Wuxia yet. Naturally, she couldn't disclose all the details of Wuxia. She only needed to convey her master's intention. The fortuitous encounter with Liya made Zhenqin admire her master's ability to deduce events even more, while also leaving a deep impression on her heart. In all heavens and myriad realms, there are countless opportunities, but the true great opportunity is still her master. Cultivating beside her master is the fastest path of cultivation. Although Zhenqin thought this way, she didn't regret coming out. Only by broadening her horizons could she truly appreciate how precious what she had before was. Besides, she would return sooner or later, and she would earnestly reflect on everything she encountered along the way, transforming it into insights to bring back to Wuxiji disciples. Walking through the streets of the city, Zhenqin's intense emotions grew even stronger. She suddenly thought of Shenzhen and Shangguansiener who loved to write, and then of the special works of Book Saint Xuantianyi. If she could record the majestic sights she saw in a magic artifact and bring it back, would it be more effective? However, some scenes can only be truly felt through personal experience to sense their vast Tao intent. While Zhenqin was pondering, a large number of cultivators suddenly flew over from above, each with an imposing aura, interrupting her thoughts. She looked up, raising her eyebrows. The unusual situation in the sky attracted the attention of the living beings on the streets, and they began to discuss. It's people from Shendao Mansion. Something significant must be happening. Don't you know? Remnants of the dark heavenly court have appeared in the 3,000 great worlds. The celestial court has dispatched immortal gods to investigate. This disturbance is even greater than the previous struggle for the Son of Heaven. Isn't the 3,000 great worlds already under Shenyuan Human Venerable's control? Is he the one investigating? Not so. It's said that stronger forces are involved, and Shenyuan Human Venerable might face difficulties. How do you know so much? My fellow Taoist participated in the struggle for the Son of Heaven millions of years ago. He sent me a message back then saying that the 3,000 great worlds would undergo major changes. Since the outbreak of the struggle for the Son of Heaven, the celestial court is no longer so mysterious. At least Shenyuan Human Venerable, Great Immortal Divine Yuan, and their subordinates, the immortal gods, have become well known across the heavens. Upon hearing them mention the 3,000 great worlds, Zhenqin's brow involuntarily furrowed. She felt an instant urge to return, but upon further thought, realized that with her strength she couldn't change such a catastrophe, and besides, the celestial spirit great world had Wuxia, so nothing could happen. She continued forward, attentively listening to the information along the way. Before this she would also hear news of the heavenly court immortals, but never as much as now. The return of Shindao Mansion's cultivators directly unleashed the internal struggles of the celestial court into the public eye, spreading throughout the entire city. Not just in this huge city, but wherever there were many living beings along the path of the Great Tao, the news was received earlier. The celestial court plans to take action on the 3,000 great worlds. The living beings who could come to the path of the Great Tao were not mere mortal spirits. They knew very well that the dispatch of so many immortal gods by the celestial court to descend would not be for a simple investigation. Old legends about the once annihilation of the 3,000 great worlds were also being unearthed, giving the cultivators on the path of the Great Tao a more profound understanding of the celestial court. In the messages that followed, the 3,000 great worlds gradually got the news. Some great worlds were jubilant because their worlds indeed had evil demons, but more great worlds felt fear, always feeling that the arrival of the immortal gods would bring trouble to the world. Thousands of years later, the news also spread into the celestial spirit great world, causing all the sects to be shaken. They too felt that the arrival of the immortal gods signaled an impending catastrophe. Within the Taoist field of the beginningless, on a ridge, thousands of Wuxia disciples gathered. Wuxia, dressed in a white robe, stood on the slope, everyone watching him. As the breeze blew, his robe fluttered, and the robe was emblazoned with a red sparrow, closely resembling the Wuxia divine sparrow. Wuxia said loudly, "Fellow disciples, I haven't experienced the struggle for the Son of Heaven, but based on the past, when immortal gods descend in great numbers, it's definitely not a good thing. Even if the immortal gods don't make mischief, there's inevitably a seed of calamity in the human world. If chaos arises, we Wuxia must take the lead and defend the heavens and earth." As soon as these words were spoken, the Wuxia disciples on the mountain all echoed. Search * the novelier. N.T. website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The ones who came were not the entire Wuxia, just a small group of disciples who had a good relationship with Wuxia. Wuxia thought this was a good opportunity. He wanted to accomplish a great deed, letting all living beings know who the true protector of heaven and earth was. And Zizai stood on a distant mountaintop watching this scene with a face full of gratification. The fourth-generation disciple Hai Yuan sighed, thinking back to when he first joined Wuxia. "I never would have imagined he could grow to his current height. Not only is his cultivation level profound, but his prestige is also quite good. Being able to gather so many disciples based on his connections is indeed remarkable." And Zizai's lips curled up, saying, "It's far more than that. Nevertheless, he indeed exceeded my expectations." From initial caution to now, and Zizai held boundless expectations for Wuxia. He had taught many disciples, but none could compare to Wuxia. Unfortunately, Wuxia just couldn't catch the ancestors' attention. Could it be that Wuxia was too uninteresting? And Zizai often pondered this question, comparing Gu An's favorite disciple Suhan with Wuxia. Suhan's advantage was his love for play, but precisely because of this love for play, Suhan's Tao practice had already been overshadowed by Wuxia. If this was indeed the case, then Zizai really couldn't advise Wuxia because he believed that a love for play wasn't a good thing. Tao practice was most important. However, in front of Guan he wouldn't dare to voice these thoughts. "Uncle Master, if the immortal gods truly come to the celestial spirit great world, to what extent should we intervene?" Hai Yuan looked at Zizai, hesitantly asking. The trend of events was like a torrent, unstoppable. The immortal gods had not yet arrived, but the atmosphere among various sects in the world had already become tense. They would wonder who the immortal gods were targeting and who would be affected. Would the dominant position of the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance face destabilization? They needed to prepare for all troubles and also wait for the possible downfall of the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance. In worldly affairs, Wuxia cannot rush to the forefront. It just needs to act at critical moments, otherwise its nature would change, and Zizai said meaningfully. He had lived many years and witnessed numerous catastrophes, having developed his understanding of the evolution of the world's grand trend. Hai Yuan pondered his words carefully. Meanwhile, Guan was in his courtyard reading a book. As the news of the immortal gods spread wildly, Xuantianyi surprisingly began writing stories about the immortal gods. To his knowledge, Xuantianyi had never interacted with the immortal gods, but precisely because of this, he dared to pen the romantic tales of the immortal gods. The male and female protagonists turn love into hate, battling beyond the heavens, countless worlds annihilated. When only a sliver of strength remained in either of them, they looked at each other's weakened state and reminisced about the bits and pieces of the past, whereupon love rekindled. Absurd. But the details were well described, making Guan find it quite interesting. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 856, Battle of Nine Extremes. It's quite lively outside. Shenzhen turned his head to Guan, who was reading, and said, besides Wuxia, other disciples were gathering in different places, making similar calls. The number of disciples in Wuxia now amounted to hundreds of thousands, not counting those out for training. With so many disciples, circles naturally formed based on the closeness of relationships. Wuxia could rally a group of disciples and naturally, other disciples could do the same. Fighting within Wuxia was not forbidden. As long as it was healthy without harming fellow disciples, external competition was allowed. Guan casually replied, let them mess around. They have yet to experience tribulations, treating calamities as a game. After tens of millions of years, most of the disciples within Wuxia had not experienced tribulations. Born on the nine-spirit continent, they had cultivated steadily until now. Although they spoke righteously about the arrival of the immortal gods, in reality, they only felt excitement with no trace of worry. Challenging the immortal gods was something that filled them with fighting spirit. Shenzhen smiled and followed, I can already foresee the scene of the immortal gods descending. Although it's tragic, the fate seems vague, as if it could change at any moment, which means you might intervene. Though she hadn't yet achieved innate golden immortal, her long-term research on the way of cause and effect made her better at deducing fate than an innate golden immortal. Her achievements were due to not only Guan's Dao intense assistance but also the power of the great cause and effect steal from the Emperor of Eternal Life. We can't just let someone destroy our home, can we? Guan replied softly. His answer surprised Shenzhen a bit. She felt Guan had changed. In the past, even if he had plans in mind, he wouldn't directly speak out like this. Now he was more assertive. This indicated that his strength had grown again. Shenzhen couldn't help but wonder if his frequent outings truly allowed him to gain insights from the red dust. Just then Guan put down his book, looking towards the celestial vault. What's wrong? Shenzhen asked curiously. Guan replied, a great world has started rebelling against the immortal gods, and it's intense. Nine Extremes Great World. Among the 3,000 great worlds, one ranked in the top 10 in heritage. When the immortal gods descended, they didn't stop them, allowing them to search the great world. But as more and more living beings were exterminated, they couldn't sit still, thus initiating the first battle between human and gods. Before this, in the great worlds where the immortal gods had been, even if there was resistance, it was minor and couldn't form a scale. But the Nine Extremes Great World was the first where all beings united in resistance. It must be said, the Nine Extremes Great World was indeed powerful, with over 100 innate golden immortals, and even a hidden ancient Miaojin Daluo immortal. Before this, the celestial gods dared not act recklessly, maintaining good relations with the various forces of the Nine Extremes Great World, but now they had become complete enemies. Guan saw that the head of the heavenly gods, Marshal of Heaven, made a move. Though this supreme immortal was also a Miaojin Daluo immortal, his strength was formidable, completely overwhelming the Miaojin Daluo immortal from the other side, and each strike hit the morale of the Nine Extremes Great World. This battle doomed the Nine Extremes Great World to failure, and its former glory would be no more. But with other beings from the 3,000 great worlds within, they would spread the word of this battle, encouraging other great worlds to unite against the immortal god sooner. Hearing Guan's words, Shenzhen immediately tried to deduce the situation, but unfortunately her abilities weren't enough to calculate it. Can you let me see? Shenzhen asked curiously. With a wave of Guan's hand, Shenzhen's pupils changed, displaying the situation of the Nine Extremes Great World. Her expression followed suit, with shock gradually climbing onto her face. Even with her cultivation level looking at it, the battle was incredible. The heritage of the Nine Extremes Great World was immense, the presence of the immortal gods was invincible, and those magical treasures larger than the heavens all stimulated her eyes. Guan did not comment on this battle but silently watched with her. The battle lasted for many years. Even with the Miaojin Daluo immortal suppressed, The beings of the Nine Extremes Great World did not give up their fighting spirit, still choosing to fight to the death. Search * the Nephire. Et website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Until the entire Great World fell into silence. The Nine Extremes Great World was dozens of times larger than the Celestial Spirit Great World, with an extremely vast number of living beings, but such a vast world turned into a human purgatory in less than a century. Some living beings were still alive but hid in the shadows, not daring to see the daylight. The presence of the roaming immortal gods appeared like evil demons in their eyes. In the void, Marshal of Heaven hovered above the Nine Extremes Great World, looking down at the celestial Tao light layer above, watching as the light layer gradually dimmed, his brows furrowed. A celestial god approached him, asking in a low voice, "Marshal, are we really doing the right thing?" Even for the celestial gods who disregard all living beings, seeing so many beings die would cause unease in their hearts. Marshal of Heaven remained expressionless, not answering. He knew more than the celestial gods did, and because of this, his emotions were even more turbulent inside. Yet he never showed it. Seeing he didn't want to answer, the celestial god could only retreat. After a while, Marshal of Heaven seemed to sense something, turning his head to see a figure looking at him from the end of the void. He immediately moved over, but when he arrived, the figure was already gone, as if it had never appeared. He turned to look again, finding that figure standing further away in the void, quietly watching him. He discovered his divine sense couldn't capture that figure. Clearly the other was not truly present, likely a remnant of some great Tao. He no longer moved, instead standing and observing the figure, becoming more and more shocked as he thought of a specific existence. What's happening? How can he appear? Marshal of Heaven's expression became serious for the first time, his eyes filled with dread. Since the news of the impending arrival of the immortal gods spread, the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance began deploying beyond outer heaven, and the cultivators near the world gate grew in number. Due to the presence of the celestial spirit god, they dared not approach. On this day, the world gate lit up, causing the distant cultivators to become tense. Soon, Tai Immortal Monarch stepped out, causing the cultivators to breathe a sigh of relief. They had seen Tai Immortal Monarch before and knew this immortal god was on their side. The celestial spirit god stood, looking at Tai Immortal Monarch, not bothering with courtesy, and hurriedly asked, "What's the situation?" Tai Immortal Monarch's face looked grim, saying, "The celestial court has closed the heavenly ascension stairs leading to the 3,000 great worlds. I cannot return to the celestial court, but I have discovered that this time, it's Marshal of Heaven himself." Marshal of Heaven. The celestial spirit god's expression changed drastically. For the celestial gods, Marshal of Heaven was an existence of the highest order. They have never been to the interior of the celestial court, and in their eyes, Marshal of Heaven is no weaker than the celestial emperor. Such an existence came personally. The celestial spirit god felt distressed for the celestial spirit great world again, but thinking of Guan, his mood calmed somewhat. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 857. The Will of All Beings. I can confirm that this time, the action against the 3,000 great worlds is not the scheme of any particular entity, but the will of the entire celestial court. The situation is far worse than we anticipated. Tai Immortal Monarch said with a frown, his face looking very grim. Upon hearing this, the celestial spirit god became even more worried, because he knew that behind this action by the immortal gods was the will of the heavenly emperor, whose true intention was to annihilate Shenyuan Human Venerable and Tianhao. The world gate returned to normal, and the cultivators watching from afar dared not approach, leaving only the two immortal gods in silence. For a long time, Tai Immortal Monarch spoke, "What we can do is defend the celestial spirit great world. Don't think too much about anything else. The more you think, the more chaotic your mind becomes." The celestial spirit god nodded and then bowed to Tai Immortal Monarch. Tai Immortal Monarch gave him a deep look, then disappeared from the spot. The celestial spirit god sat back down and continued his cultivation, his desire to become stronger now unprecedentedly intense. The years continued to pass. The sensational war of the Nine Extremes Great World eventually spread, reaching even into the celestial spirit Great World, causing panic among all the sects in the world, but also conveying a certain power. Although the Nine Extremes Great World was defeated, The bravery it exhibited shocked all living beings. How could the immortal gods expect the mortal spirits to quietly accept death? That was never possible. A seed of rebellion against the immortal gods took root and began to sprout in the hearts of all beings. Great powers began to use their teachings to inspire all living beings to defend their own realms. The Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance was one such example, starting to widely publicize the tragic situation of the Nine Extremes Great World, urging all beings to abandon fantasies and prepare for battle. Some questioned whether the Nine Extremes Great World truly harbored evil demons, but such voices were quickly drowned out. A long-standing peace lulled the celestial spirit Great World into a state of confidence. No sect fell into despair, not even the most cautious Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance, which still harbored a hint of hope. 3 million years passed. The immortal gods had still not descended upon the celestial spirit Great World. The mass of living beings had already forgotten this shadow, yet the immortal cultivation realm remained tense. Led by the Great Thousand Worlds, they prepared to form a Great Thousand World Alliance to aid the Great World suffering devastation. The Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance also agreed to join, reasoning that it was better to fight far from the celestial spirit Great World than to have the enemy come knocking at their door. At noon in the mountain viewing pavilion, Guan and Nzazai sat facing each other inside the pavilion, while Hai Yuan stood behind Nzazai, body tensed, posture somewhat stiff. The Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance came to test me. I told them outright that you are no longer in the celestial spirit Great World, and it's unknown when you'll return, to prevent them from placing all their hopes on you, Nzazai said earnestly. Ancestor Master Wuxia is the greatest backing of the celestial spirit Great World. However, Ancestor Master Wuxia rarely shows himself. The sects of the world can't fathom Ancestor Master Wuxia's thoughts, so they dare not hope for his intervention. They had no choice but to visit Nzazai, hoping to get a definite answer from his mouth. Upon hearing that Ancestor Master Wuxia had already left, the sects began preparing for war in earnest. Guan was unaffected. He would act if he wished to act. Now, the will of all living beings could no longer influence him. Ancestor, will the Wuxiji disciples participate in the Great Thousand World Alliance? Nzazai looked at Guan and asked softly. Guan spoke, Wuxi's responsibility is to guard the celestial spirit Great World, not the 3,000 Great Worlds. Otherwise, this responsibility will grow ever larger, potentially leading to opposition with the celestial court. The more disciples there are, the more chaotic people's hearts become. Wuxia is too vast. Sometimes you too will find yourself dragged along by circumstances. Nzazai nodded in deep agreement. In the past, he was not fond of Wuxia but had to cultivate him as too many disciples petitioned for Wuxia. Guan glanced at Hai Yuan standing behind Nzazai and smiled, Why don't you sit? Why are you standing? As a fourth-generation disciple, Guan naturally remembered Hai Yuan, serving as Nzazai's right-hand man. His flaw was being too inflexible, treating people and matters the same, even maintaining conventional etiquette in front of him. Ancestor, I'm fine standing, Hai Yuan answered awkwardly, his expression becoming embarrassed, not daring to meet Guan's gaze. Guan chuckled and didn't persuade him further. Then Nzazai talked about the situation of the sects worldwide, worrying that some sects might take advantage of this calamity to strike at the Heavenly Spirit Tao Alliance, causing more disasters. Guan gave no response, avoiding revealing any destiny. Thereafter he only listened without speaking. Nzazai also tried to gauge his ancestor's attitude, but he couldn't discern any information from his ancestor's expression or gaze. An hour later, Nzazai stood up and left, with Hai Yuan following closely. Only when the two were far away did Hai Yuan finally relax. Guan did not leave the mountain viewing pavilion immediately. He beckoned with a hand, and the Wuxia divine sparrow flew over, landing on the table. At this moment, another person appeared, second-generation disciple LV Xian. See the novel, F.I.R. at website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Not long ago, LV Xian had just achieved the rank of innate golden immortal, consolidating his reputation as a genius. Recently, his fame in the dojo had surged. Master, I want to venture out, what do you think? LV Xian sat down boldly at the table and asked excitedly. He had been in seclusion previously, but after hearing about the fights in the Nine Extremes Great World, his entire fighting spirit was ignited, and he wanted to challenge the immortal gods. Guan looked at him and said, This is not a child's play. If you die out there, I will not save you. The sharpness of the celestial court is something I must avoid unless it is unavoidable. Xian laughed. Don't worry, I won't act recklessly. I will visit those ruined great thousand worlds, challenge the guardian heavenly gods, and rescue the suffering living beings. If you've thought it through, then go ahead. Guan replied casually. Xian was overjoyed, quickly thanked him and then got up to leave. Xian had barely left when Xingtian and Jianghu arrived. They also wanted to leave the celestial spirit great world to explore, and their reasons were much like Xian's. After a word of caution, Guan allowed them to go. Faced with the catastrophe brought about by the immortal gods, although most beings felt uneasy, those self-proclaimed outstanding cultivators saw it as an opportunity. Guan once again looked to the future and found that the schemes targeting Wuxia were increasing. Those great thousand worlds ravaged by the immortal gods were being invaded by another force, the Dark Heavenly Court. They guided the surviving beings to harbor hatred for the celestial court, expanding their own power. They would encounter Wuxia disciples and thus develop an interest in Wuxia, even alarming a Dark Heavenly Court great power whose cultivation level was not inferior to the Emperor Bone Profound Venerable. The great powers had yet to conceive thoughts of targeting Wuxia, but Guan had already foreseen the trajectory of events after the convergence of causality. Simultaneously, life expectancy predictions continuously popped up as his future enemies. Since Guan broke through, his karmic enemies had increasingly diminished, except recently they had grown. As he awaited visits from other disciples, Guan began searching for a suitable battlefield. He was preparing to harvest lifespans. The immortal gods, being immortal, couldn't grant him lifespans, but there were quite a few beings who, out of fear, pledged themselves to the immortal gods. Furthermore, the Dark Heavenly Court would attract endless evil demons. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Thinking like this, he sat on the ground looking up at the dark sky. The blue sky in his memory seemed non-existent, as if it was all in his imagination. The boy suddenly felt very tired, as if all the strength in his body had been drained. He slowly lay down, his body forming a big character. At this moment, the endless dark clouds above began to churn, rapidly forming a spectacular vortex, growing ever larger as if to swallow the entire world. The boy widened his eyes, suspecting he was seeing things, so he rubbed his eyes, looked again. The vortex of dark clouds had grown larger, even lightning appeared, but there was no sound, like a phantom scene. He quickly sat up, patting his sister's back, motioning her to look up. The little girl looked up, immediately widening her eyes, her small mouth instinctively opening, the murky water flowing down, wetting her clothes. The siblings stared dumbly at the sky, helpless. Soon, a surge of black mist poured out from the cloud vortex, spreading over the entire world, oppressing them immensely. Gradually, the boy heard a buzzing sound. He became alert, hurriedly dragging his sister toward a nearby giant rock. The siblings hid behind the boulder, the girl covering her mouth, while the boy cautiously peeked out, his pupils suddenly dilated. It turned out it wasn't black mist, but horrifying black evil demons, the nearest demon to him flying like a mountain, scaring him into quickly pulling back, holding his sister tightly. Boom! A gust of wind roared by, stones flying wildly. The boulder behind them started to tremble, making them even more nervous and afraid, yet even so they didn't make a sound. A dark shadow swept past. The boy slightly raised his head, saw a black evil demon with wings flying toward the horizon, followed by others flying over their heads. The demons were diverse, some like humans, some like monsters, each gigantic, emitting a violent bloody scent. The boy was terribly frightened and lowered his head again, not daring to look. The sound of the demons flying was so noisy, growing louder, until it was deafening. Why were we born in such a world? Why are we alive? Father, you said there is the heavenly Tao and there are immortals in the heavens. If there really are gods, why don't they protect us? Father, besides us, are there really other people in this world? The boy cried out in his heart. He was only 13, no matter how strong he appeared to be, facing the evil demons covering the sky, he was also afraid and despaired. He pressed down on his sister's head tightly, afraid she would see the terrifying scene above. Only, he felt a gust coming from the front, though the demons were coming from behind. How could there be wind from the front? Realizing something, his body started to shake violently. Father, I'm scared. The boy gritted his teeth tightly but couldn't control his fear and uttered these 4 words. Suddenly, the wind from the front disappeared. The clamor of the world also abruptly ceased, the boy even more nervous, not daring to raise his head. After a long while, he mustered his courage, looked up, and when he saw the scene ahead, he suddenly looked up, eyes wide open, with an expression of incredulity. In front of him stood a man in black, standing against the wind, black flames dispersing across the sky. He even saw the severed limbs of demons gradually turning to ashes. Rays of sunlight pierced through the dark clouds, illuminating the earth, one ray brushing across the boulder they hid by, following and sweeping over the man in black, extending to the horizon. The boy gazed dumbly at the back of the man in black, instinctively murmuring, "Father?" The girl heard his words, also looking up, equally startled by the man in black. "Boy, I'm not your father." A gentle voice came. The man in black turned his head to look at them, and his appearance was also astonishing to the siblings. So handsome, so good-looking. The siblings looked at the smile on Guane's face, their fear and unease receded like the tide. Are you an immortal?" the boy asked tremblingly. "Sir, the Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 859. Can't survive even one move. I am not an immortal, I am just like you, a human. Guan turned back to look at the celestial vault and replied, as warnings about seizing lifespan continued to flash before his eyes. The evil demons in this world seem innumerable, but actually, most are mere avatars, feigning an overwhelming momentum to terrify all living beings. The boy and the young girl heard Guan's response, and their tension dissipated, replaced by great joy. Besides them, there were other living people and seemingly very powerful ones. "Big brother, what's happening with those guys in the sky?" The boy mustered the courage to ask. Although surprised by Guan's appearance, he had not witnessed Guan in action, so he was filled with curiosity and confusion. Guan turned to look at them. Although the siblings appeared pitiful and miserable, he felt little sympathy, having seen beings far worse off while overseeing the heavens. S.E.A. the Novel Fire. Any *T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. They are being expelled. This land will soon be restored to its former state. Head north and you can meet others. Everything will get better. Guan replied. Within less than 10 years, this world's beings had faced a decimation of 99%, and the survivors harbored hatred toward the immortal gods, passing down tales of their suffering to instill a disdain for the immortals in future generations. You wouldn't help all beings uncover the truth. No matter the case, their plight was indeed caused by immortals. With those words, Guan walked away in another direction. "Big brother, was it you who saved us just now?" The boy hurriedly took 2 steps forward, loudly asking, his gaze filled with tension and anticipation directed at Guan. Guan paused without turning back, said, "Yes, it was me, what of it? I can't take you with me, there are still many evil demons waiting for me to vanquish." Upon hearing this, the boy grew excited, immediately kneeling and kowtowing to Guan. The young girl followed suit, mimicking her brother. With a wave of his right hand, Guan dropped 2 secret technique manuals in front of the boy. Hearing the sound, the boy looked up, but Guan's figure had vanished. He cautiously picked up the 2 manuals before him. He was not very literate but had heard childhood tales of books containing the path to immortality. He tucked the manuals into his chest, his eyes brimming with longing. The clouds in the sky began to disperse, sunlight bathed the land, symbolizing the arrival of light. Guan's image was etched in the boy's mind, who silently vowed that he would become a hero like that big brother. Oh no, I forgot to ask his name. The boy quickly got up and began to shout for the big brother, but no matter how he called, there was no response. At dusk, Guan walked along the mountain path towards his courtyard, not having fully eradicated the evil demons of one world today. He planned to proceed slowly to avoid drawing the attention of the dark heavenly court. These days, countless large worlds and little worlds suffered, places where celestial Tao destiny was weakened were filled with bloodshed and savagery. Not just the dark heavenly court and immortal gods wreaked havoc. Many local demon cultivators and demons took the opportunity to fulfill their desires, and even ghosts and gods from the underworld descended to the human world, with battles erupting every moment. The 3,000 great worlds is merely a collective term. Beneath each large world lay countless little worlds, places where even the Mahayana realm is difficult to arise, outnumbering the stars. Guan intended to slowly harvest lifespans, seizing this rare opportunity to its fullest. If he encountered beings that evoked his compassion, he would not hesitate to leave them with a chance, enabling them to grow stronger independently. Overall, today's gains put Guan in a good mood. He walked along while searching for his next target, able to restore that large world to peace within 5 days, allowing him to choose his next target in advance. Notably, he saw Li Ye. Li Ye, who had been cultivating on the path of the great Tao, away from this turmoil, couldn't restrain himself after hearing about the immortal god's chaos, heading to the great thousand world to rescue all living beings. Knowing his strength was insufficient against immortal gods, he chose to save shattered large worlds, a decision that also altered his fate. Guan foresaw that Li Ye's future would reach greater heights, even paving his own path. "Senior brother, I underestimated you." Guan smiled, thinking to himself that while Li Ye had abundant opportunities, without his backing, Li Ye would have died long ago, so he viewed Li Ye's limits as far below Ji Xiaoyu's. Yet, facing the immortal's calamity, Li Ye treaded a stronger path, earning his fresh respect. He genuinely felt happy for Li Ye. He was so stubborn, unwilling to become his full-fledged subordinate, and now finally had hope. A more joyous Guan returned to the courtyard, where an ex-Ayan rare to exit seclusion, was standing by the artifact refining cauldron, chatting with Shenzhen. Seeing Guan, she immediately approached. "Master, I recently had some insights, could you evaluate them?" An ex-Ayan asked expectantly. For tens of millions of years, she had almost always been in seclusion, single-mindedly pursuing the Tao. Her immortal emperor's eye became increasingly powerful, but she always felt inadequately strong, pushing ever onward. Guan replied, "Come here early tomorrow, I will take you out, you will gain something from travel." An ex-Ayan agreed without questioning further, bowed and turned to leave. Guan eyed her with a gaze full of gratification. Passing on the immortal emperor's eye to an ex-Ayan was indeed right. Her immortal emperor's eye would surely achieve greatness, and her future attainment as a Daluo immortal was truly feasible, provided she endured the lengthy accumulation. Guan went inside, took out profound celestial intense book for reading, consciously shifting his attention away from the suffering of all living beings. The moon set, the sun rose, heralding a new day. An ex-Ayan arrived early at the courtyard to wait, and upon seeing her, Su Han, who came to find Guan, instantly became nervous. He highly respected Nzazai and naturally felt awe towards Nzazai's master. Moreover, an ex-Ayan stood there impassively, radiating an oppressive presence that instinctively made him tense. Curiosity filled him, wondering what cultivation level this legendary second-generation chief disciple had achieved. Guan pushed the door open, nodded at an ex-Ayan, then led her out of the courtyard. Su Han hastily bowed but dared not speak up, feeling uneasy in Nzin's presence. After Guan and an ex-Ayan departed, Su Han finally exhaled and turned to Shenzhen, curiously asking, "Grandmaster Shen, what are Grandmaster and Senior going to do?" Shenzhen glanced at him and said, "Why not ask yourself? Aren't you in good terms with your Grandmaster?" Su Han awkwardly smiled, "Isn't Senior and right there? Seeing her makes me nervous." Shenzhen chuckled and said nothing further. "Grandmaster Shen, what realm is Senior in? Do you know?" Su Han pursued. Casually, Shenzhen responded, "I don't know. I only know your eldest brother couldn't withstand a single move from her. You might want to ask him yourself." "Not withstand a single move?" Su Han froze, realizing how vast the gap in cultivation levels must be. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. As her cultivation level grew stronger, let alone planting or picking medicinal herbs, she even found managing disciples troublesome, fully delegating to her apprentices. She felt the gap between herself and her master was not only in cultivation level but also in mentality. This unwavering Tao heart was what she truly should pursue. After picking the herbs, Guan then leisurely took an ex-Ayan to that great world. The following days were essentially like this, going out during the day to slay demons and return by evening. Many Wuxia disciples glimpsed their figures, though with much speculation, none could guess what they actually did. On a moonlit night, the moon was bright with sparse stars, meteors occasionally streaked across the sky. On a hillside, Li Ye sat before a bonfire, roasting a huge pig leg, with dozens of boys and girls squatting nearby, all drooling as they watched the roasted pig leg. They didn't dare to speak, fearing to disrupt this beautiful scene. Liu, watching their expressions, only felt amused. He coughed softly, saying, "Hurry up and cultivate, don't waste time. What if we encounter demons tomorrow and I die under their claws, what will you do?" Upon hearing this, the boys and girls scattered, each sitting cross-legged to cultivate, although their eyes occasionally glancing at the roasted pig leg. They were really hungry. It had been a long time since they smelled such a meat fragrance. Liu also felt sour in his heart. He felt he was so fortunate, born in the peaceful era of the celestial spirit great world. Even when encountering a celestial calamity, there was junior brother Gu to avert disaster. Yet when looking at the children of this realm, whose parents were all gone, living in fear and peril, even if he rescued them, he could only protect them for a moment, not a lifetime. He couldn't always shelter these children because he still had to save more lives. He turned his eyes to the bonfire, seeing his own face within the flames. Liu, you traversed the heavens, experiencing countless hardships. You've been carefree and at ease, but what do you really seek? At least junior brother Gu always protects his world while you wander everywhere. What exactly do you want? Liu asked himself in his heart. This was a question he often pondered upon entering. Seeing the devastating hardships brought upon the world by immortal gods, yet unable to stop it, unable to even tell the suffering masses the truth, he felt he was thinking and worrying about too much, like a headless fly, saving the sufferers but unable to change the phenomenon. There would always be people suffering. Even though he kept doing this, he lacked any influence relative to the vast heavenly Tao. Liu lost in thought, reminiscing about his past life. The more he pondered, the colder his heart felt. For a long time. A timid voice reached him. "Senior, the meat is charred." Liu snapped back to reality, focused his sight, and indeed the pig leg was charred. He immediately drew his sword, starting to cut the roasted meat for the children. The children took the roasted meat, disregarding the heat, and began to eat it. Suddenly, sounds of gasping for cool air rose one after another. Liu watched amusedly, and for some reason he suddenly wanted to establish a sect, to take these lone children to save more people. One person's strength was limited, but what if more people aided? These children would carry hatred throughout their lives. Without his guidance, perhaps they would embark on a path of irreversible destruction. No, that can't be right. Why must it be a sect? Liu thought of the Taoist emperor and primordial Tao emperor on the path of the great Tao. If all Taoist emperors united, what kind of power would that be? Perhaps not necessarily weaker than the celestial court. He could take disciples but not establish sect rules. He wished to gather like-minded individuals. If so, then what would his principles of journeying through the world and cultivation philosophy be? Liu fell into deep thought once again. Unbeknownst to him, on a distant mountain top were two people watching him, precisely Guan and an Xian. An Xian, with the immortal emperor's eye open, was observing Liu's destiny. She could clearly see the changes in Liu's destiny, which surprised her. "Master, what kind of opportunity has elder Liu gained?" An Xian couldn't help but ask. Guan looked at Liu from afar, chuckling. "No opportunity, but his state of mind has had a breakthrough. He'll soon walk a new path. In the dark, cause and effect will resonate, influencing his destiny. In Zin's immortal emperors I could see things even innate golden immortal found hard to capture, like the destiny on Liu. This destiny was not postnatal fortune. It could grow with one's cultivation level and momentum. It was innate original destiny, difficult to capture, representing a person's limit, also known as celestial mandate. Upon hearing Guan's words, an Xian seemed to have an epiphany and also fell into contemplation. Guan, looking at Liu, was similarly contemplating his own path. The path of a saint was certainly not fixed. Everyone should have their own path to sainthood. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. The innate golden immortal had already fallen into Zin's illusion realm of the immortal emperor's eye, unable to perceive this, still thinking an Xian was right in front of him. He saw the hope of victory, his fighting spirit soaring higher. However, an Xian wasn't in front of him but had been following behind him, coldly watching him squander mana. Guan nodded approvingly, satisfied with Zin's performance. Zin's suppressive power at the same realm grew stronger in recent years. Over the past century, her use of the immortal emperor's eye greatly improved. In Guan's eyes, Zin's future continues to unfold, her powerful figure constantly appearing. Someday she will surely become a renowned great power in the heavenly Tao. Seemingly sensing the right moment, the giant purple eyes on the celestial dome suddenly squinted, as did an Xin, her eyes bursting with a strange purple light, making everything within the barrier turn illusory. The attacking innate golden immortal suddenly stopped. Figure after figure flew out of Nzin's eyes, all her figure holding a treasure sword, leaping forward, one sword slicing through the innate golden immortal's body, followed closely by others. In an instant 10,000 swords swept across, the innate golden immortal's body covered in countless cracks, and mana inside seeped out like mist, spreading around. In less than 5 breaths' time, this innate golden immortal turned to ashes and scattered away. Guwen had long seen Nzin's method of taking down enemies with the illusion realm of the immortal emperor's eye, utilizing the paths of cause and effect and fate, making it unavoidable. You successfully seized 3,594,261,102 years of lifespan from the soulless elder, late stage of innate golden immortal realm. As before Nzin's opponent could die, Guwen would quietly intervene, and until now an Xin hasn't noticed anything amiss. An Xin raised a hand to catch the soulless elder's storage pouch and magical treasure, then turned to fly toward Guwen. She approached Guwen, handing over the 2 items, and he waved, storing the storage pouch and magical treasure into his sleeve, then pointed to discuss the previous battle. An Xin listened attentively. During this century, her rapid advancement in strength could not have been achieved without Guwen's teaching and guidance. Now her mentality had shifted, no longer confined to the celestial spirit great world, she began to truly resemble a great power cultivator. After a while, Guwen led her back to the celestial spirit great world. After they left, the restriction ahead dissipated, a strong wind surged from within, howling across the land, declaring the fierce battle that once erupted. Under the dazzling starry sky, clouds surged endlessly, accompanied by a graceful melody from a zither. Following the sound of the zither, there was an ancient tree standing above the sea of clouds, with a white-robed man playing beneath it. His hair was white as snow, and blue feathers on his robe made his celestial aura unmistakable. A figure emerged through the clouds. It was a fairy in a white dress, wearing a silver jade phoenix crown and a light veil covering her face. Her exposed brows and eyes were exquisite and beautiful, her gaze as clear as the purest gems in the world. Taishang, after so many years, why have you returned to this tree again? Have you started to feel uneasy about your actions? The fairy in white skirt approached the tree and asked softly. This zither-playing white-robed man was the Heavenly Emperor. Facing her inquiry, the Heavenly Emperor did not get angry. He raised his eyes to look at her, smiling, and said, "And you, 9 Heavens Immortal Emperor, why have you come here to find me? Are you worried about the future of the celestial extreme 9 Heavens?" The 9 Heavens Immortal Emperor's expression remained unchanged as she replied, "Indeed, I'm uneasy. I don't understand why you sealed the celestial extreme 9 Heavens. Have you really changed?" The Heavenly Emperor paused his actions, looked at the 9 Heavens Immortal Emperor and replied, "Sister, you and I are no longer the Taoist children we were back then. I am the Son of Heaven, wielding power over the celestial court. I cannot overlook the threat of the celestial extreme 9 Heavens due to personal feelings. After you accepted Emperor Jianghu, he ventured into the dark heavenly court. Over these years, the dark heavenly court has swiftly infiltrated the heavenly Taoist domain. I can sense their presence within it, so I must investigate thoroughly. If there are no issues with the celestial extreme 9 Heavens, naturally I won't cause trouble. What about the 3,000 great worlds then? To plot against the Son of Heaven, you sacrificed so many living beings. You must have noticed, with so many chaos evil demons and underworld forces taking advantage of the situation. Yet your heavenly soldiers and generals never halted. If the celestial court truly has immortal divine dark, I cannot help but suspect you." After saying this, the turbulent clouds froze momentarily, and the Heavenly Emperor's face turned cold, his gaze on the 9 Heavens Immortal Emperor filled with pressure, dimming even the bright starlit river above. Their gazes locked, the 9 Heavens Immortal Emperor remained unflinching. After a while, the Heavenly Emperor withdrew his gaze, resumed playing the zither, and said, "Go back. You cannot change my will. Do not force me to cut off our brotherhood." The 9 Heavens Immortal Emperor looked at him deeply, saying, "Brother, have you ever wondered why the Emperor of Heaven entrusted you with such power? And after that, where is he? Is he watching you? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 862, True Dragon's Great Achievement. Hearing the words of the Nine Heavens' Immortal Emperor, the Heavenly Emperor furrowed his brows, anger igniting in his eyes. He slowly stood up, his terrifying aura causing the sea of clouds to begin to sink, and the ancient tree behind him to quiver violently. The Nine Heavens' Immortal Emperor showed no fear, staring directly at the Heavenly Emperor. Do you think I acquired this great power by kneeling like a dog begging him? The Heavenly Emperor asked coldly, his tone full of sarcasm, a stark contrast to his previous demeanor. At these words, the Nine Heavens' Immortal Emperor also furrowed her brows. She had always been curious about how the Heavenly Emperor obtained such power. Although his contributions in the war with the Dark Heavenly Court were significant, they weren't unprecedented. It wasn't just her, many immortal gods privately discussed this matter. Unfortunately, no immortal knew the truth. As the Heavenly Emperor's aura erupted, golden flames gradually appeared around him, transforming into a true dragon. This was an incredibly massive golden dragon, capable of swallowing the sun, moon, and stars. The ancient tree was smaller than a dragon's scale in its presence. Looking at this dragon, the Nine Heavens' Immortal Emperor's expression finally changed. She gazed up at the golden dragon in disbelief. S.E.A. the Novel Fire. Any *T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Nine Heavens True Dragon Chi, attained. How is it possible? The Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor murmured, her voice trembling. The Heavenly Emperor slightly raised his chin and said, Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor, although we share a common sect, I have lived far more years than you can imagine. You and I are merely a cause and effect of one lifetime. The power of the Heavenly Court is rightfully mine. I can control everything. You don't understand how the heavens appear in my eyes. The Dark Heavenly Court, the underworld, they're just my prey. Return. Do not leave the celestial extreme nine heavens until this strife is over, or I will personally destroy the celestial extreme nine heavens. By the end of his words, the Heavenly Emperor's tone became exceedingly forceful. The Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor was about to speak when the enormous golden dragon suddenly roared at her, the dragon's roar deafening. The terrifying pressure surged toward the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor, pressing her down through the sea of clouds, falling into the darkness. She looked at the lofty Heavenly Emperor, her eyes filled with fear and confusion. The Heavenly Emperor stood upon the sea of clouds, gazing down as she disappeared into the darkness below. When the sea of clouds reformed, the golden dragon behind him dissipated, and his aura followed in withdrawal, his white hair slowly settling down. Umph. The Heavenly Emperor snorted coldly, clearly extremely displeased with the attitude of the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor. He raised his right hand, small points of silver light emerged from his palm, countless in number. On a closer look, these silver lights were reflections of various worlds, one piece of silver light near the edge gradually darkening. Dark Heavenly Court, I must see who supports you from behind. The Heavenly Emperor murmured to himself, his tone filled with disdain. His gaze suddenly focused on a point of silver light, his pupils reflecting a silhouette, causing him to raise an eyebrow. Oh, this variable is, at dusk in the Taoist field of the beginningless. On the mountaintop, Guan meditated at the edge of the cliff, standing against the wind. He slowly opened his eyes. He had just performed a lifespan projection, requiring 100 million years of lifespan, far exceeding the amount before the upgrade. However, the insights he gained from the Great Tao also surpassed those from before. He didn't know the experiences of the projected self, but the insights gained benefited him greatly. He looked up at the 3,000 great worlds, detecting signs of survival from a portion of the projected selves. More of the projected selves were in the past and the future, all elusive without any causal connections, unless the realm reached the same height as his. Otherwise it's hard to notice them. Still not working. Could it be that taking the path of the 3,000 great Tao is wrong? The way of the saints is the ultimate of one Tao. To break through the limit, should I cultivate other Taos? Guan pondered, although he still could not find the signs of becoming a saint, such insights did enhance his Tao intent. He never rushed to become a saint. Even if he ultimately failed to comprehend, he could forcefully break through using lifespan evolution. However, during the years of accumulation he preferred to strive on his own. Sometimes, without striving a bit, one doesn't know the benefits of giving up. Guan humorously remarked to himself, he did not stand up, just sat at the edge of the cliff. As night descended, the night sky of the celestial spirit great world was resplendent with stars, a galaxy hanging upside down, so beautiful. All living beings looked up, thinking that beyond the heavens was a more vast, magnificent scene. Yet, in reality, most of the universe beyond was shrouded in darkness, devoid of light. Moon sets, sun rises. A new day came. Guwen stood up, preparing to stroll inside the dojo, rest for a few days before leading an Xian to other great worlds. Time flowed endlessly, whether the beings were in suffering or in peace, all couldn't stop the passing of time. The immortals and gods were still sweeping through the 3,000 great worlds. Chapter 863. The most feared person. It was noon, and the sun was shining brightly. Beside the fields, a group of village children gathered to listen to Guwen's storytelling. After Guwen finished speaking, a young boy impatiently asked, "Hou shot the suns, but where did those suns come from? The story didn't make it clear." The others also looked at Guwen, who smiled and said, "It is said they were born of the celestial emperor Dijun and Shihi. They are responsible for bringing daylight to the human world in turns, but occasionally they all appear together, causing calamities to the human world." Another girl asked, "After Hou shot the golden crows, would the celestial emperor seek revenge on him?" The other village children started speaking all at once, noisy and bustling. Guwen was not annoyed, only amused. He had told such mythological tales elsewhere, but it was the first time village children asked such questions. Elsewhere, children would only marvel and revere Hou's strength. This village was truly a fortuitous place. While an Xian was still battling foes on the other side of the world, Guwen patiently answered the children's questions, guiding them to think rather than giving absolute answers. Millions of years later, these children would become the dominant power holders of this great thousand world. They transformed the heavens and earth and mastered destiny, at least within this great thousand world. Even if Guwen and an Xian had not come, they could still break through the darkness and chaos to bring light to the human world. Guwen did not intend to form any ties with them. He was just somewhat bored and came to pass the time. If the two of them had not come to this realm, these village children would have lost their homes and loved ones, living forever in the shadow of hatred. The story of Hou shooting the suns was told because Liya was challenging 3 golden crows from the dark heavenly court. Sir the Nell Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. It was a struggle, but under the gaze of many disciples, he could only grit his teeth and persevere. Guwen had no intention of intervening. Although the battle would be brutal, Liya would win and even make a breakthrough in Sword Dao. Liya truly lived a brilliant life, making Guwen both empathetic and impressed. An hour later, Guwen stood up and left under the reluctant gazes of the village children. Before leaving, he left behind a basic technique to help them embark on the cultivation path sooner. Even though it was just a basic technique, it made their future brighter and more accomplished. When they stood atop this great thousand world, they would seek Guwen, but unfortunately childhood memories were too vague, even if they used cause and effect deduction to no avail. He knew an Xian was strong, but he hadn't realized none among the second-generation disciples could rival her. Recalling the blood prison great saint's performance within the barrier today, he shivered. Such a terrifying existence was no match for Master Senior? How terrifying must her talent be? On the other side, an Xian overheard their conversation, a smile tugging at her lips. She looked at Guwen and asked, "Master, could this Su Han really be Senior Brother Su?" She remembered Guwen once had a disciple named Su Han, the only one to die an untimely death, and Zhen Qin's lifelong obsession. What a coincidence it would be if this Su Han happened to join under Zhen Qin's wing and even gain paternal favor. Facing an Xian, Guwen did not hide the truth, saying, "It is indeed him, but I don't plan to let him and Qiner know the truth just yet. When they achieve enlightenment, all confusion will naturally unravel, and by then they will be at peace." An Xian nodded and remarked, "Master, though you say you don't care about this or that, I think there isn't anyone softer-hearted than you." Guwen often instructed his disciples that protecting the celestial spirit great world was enough, yet whenever the 3,000 great worlds faced calamities, he would always intervene, albeit discreetly. She understood her master's approach. Being too conspicuous risked defending the celestial court, inviting greater disasters, which only deepened her admiration for him. Knowing something impossible and still doing it? Guwen did not respond to an Xian but changed the subject, saying, Tomorrow, he'll take you to experience a real battle. You might lose, so prepare yourself mentally. Upon hearing this, Zin's smile faded, her eyes filled with battle intent. She indeed needed more powerful opponents. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 864. The vast gap below the star sea, the expansive dark earth stretched endlessly, a flicker of fire stood conspicuously against the darkness. Upon closer inspection, thousands of cultivators sat around a massive bonfire. Liya sat cross-legged at the forefront, placing his treasure sword upon his lap. He was healing while simultaneously seeking sword enlightenment. Throughout the endless years, he had encountered numerous people who aided him, from unparalleled great powers to immortal gods descending to the mortal realm. The assistance from various destined individuals had already paved a path in his sword Dao uniquely his own. Regardless of their motives for helping him, he remained true to himself, and everything he had experienced forged his current sword Dao. Despite emerging victorious in the battle against the 3 golden crows, one had escaped, and he realized this would bring about a greater calamity. He must become as strong as possible to protect the disciples around him. The surrounding disciples did not disturb him, chatting in whispers about today's battle or discussing the way of cultivation in groups of 2s and 3s. Day transitioned into night. Months passed in the blink of an eye. Liya did not seek a place to hide because as long as he remained in this great thousand world, there was no point in hiding anywhere. Until one morning, not long after dawn, flames descended from the sky, making the earth feel like it was within a furnace. The tens of thousands of disciples following Liya looked up, all frowning. A gigantic golden crow, its wings spanning millions of miles, hovered above the celestial vault, obscuring the heavens and skies. From their angle, its wings seemed larger than the celestial vault itself, as a fiery sea engulfed the sky, burning fiercely, causing the temperature between heaven and earth to soar abruptly. Liya stood up, lifting his gaze skyward to see a figure atop the head of the golden crow, whose fierce intense flames could not conceal their form. He couldn't help but furrow his eyebrows. With just one glance he felt he was not a match for the opponent. "You dared harm my child mortal, you court death." A cold, indifferent voice reverberated across heaven and earth, causing a look of confusion to flash in Liya's eyes. He had slain 2 golden crows, how could that merely be considered hurting? Could it be that those 2 golden crows were not dead? He had no time to think further. Grabbing his sword, he unsheathed it, unleashing an immense sword intent that transformed into a sea of silver light, blanketing the ground and isolating it from the scorching heat from the sky. "Disciples, continue resting, your master will return shortly." Tens of thousands of hate-filled faces gazed skyward, causing the mysterious high existence to frown. He was a tall man clad in a red robe, with a dark red serpent coiled around his waist, black scales crawling across half his face, resembling a half-man, half-demon. Just as he was about to strike, he abruptly turned his head to see enormous purple eyes emerging at the ends of the world, peering into the tiny world below. A figure appeared out of thin air behind him, swinging a sword to strike. As he shifted form, transforming into countless illusionary clones spreading across the sky above the golden crow, he focused his gaze ahead to see a white-clothed woman standing atop the golden crow, coldly staring at him. Was an Xian. The red-robed man immediately led his countless clones to assault an Xian, who was charging back at him. With a roar, the massive golden crow exploded, gusts mixed with heat waves swept towards all corners of heaven and earth, blinding Liya and his disciples with fire waves. But soon the fire waves dissipated, revealing the celestial vault, leaving them wide-eyed in disbelief. The bright celestial vault now hosted countless densely packed purple eyes of varying sizes, impossible to count, causing any observer to shiver with unease. Liya clearly observed the true form of the newcomer, expressing delight and suddenly no longer felt the need to speak. The agony within his body faded with it. "Junior brother Gu, even this you can hear?" Liya felt a sense of joy, mistaking it for Gu and hearing his inner voice and immediately dispatching an Xin. Simultaneously he was astonished by Nzin's strength. He had never crossed blades with an Xin but had met many times, remembering her as a regular disciple from the 3rd Medicine Valley of the Supreme Sect. Even with her closeness to Guin, her cultivation level was ordinary. Watching an Xan battle the red-robed man, displaying overwhelming divine skills and spells, he clearly noticed the vast disparity between himself and an Xan. Could even the slightest disciple around junior brother Gu be stronger than him? Recalling Jin Qin's hesitant expression when facing him before, Leah couldn't help but let out a bitter smile. So that's how it is. The surrounding disciples were equally astonished by Nzin's might, feeling as if the celestial vault had been ripped apart. The extraordinary scenes as if the outer space was collapsing, with every divine skill and spell exchange between an Xian and the red-robed man, stimulated their eyes and souls. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 865. Sudden enlightenment. Guan stood on the cliff, quietly watching the battle. The man in the red robe was unparalleled across countless eras, undefeated in the same realm, making him a perfect whetstone for an Xan. Although he already foresaw the outcome, he was still eager to see how the ensuing events would unfold. Helping Liu was one reason, but he was also very interested in the existence backing the man in the red robe. It might lead to a huge explosion of lifespan. Guan felt no burden in exterminating such malevolent powers. Powers like these, capable of incidentally annihilating the heavens and earth, were a result of the vast disparity in strength. However, the red-robed man allowed his offspring to torment all living beings, collecting grievances, which was truly evil. The three golden crows were intentionally burning the earth, slowly forcing the remaining creatures of this world to harbor resentment toward heaven and earth, toward the heavenly Tao. Meanwhile, they could also cultivate their cultivation technique by collecting the grievances of all beings. Guan watched the battle while examining his attribute panel. He was contemplating when to make his breakthrough. For some reason, this breakthrough gave him a bad premonition. He always felt that his lifespan was insufficient. Because over the years he had continually pursued the saint realm, even though he had guidance from his experiences within the profound abyss divine pool, he still felt saints were beyond reach, unable to imagine how he could achieve sainthood. The more he chased the saint realm, the greater his reverence for saints. Yet, knowing there are records about saints within the profound abyss divine pool indicates that saints do truly exist. Where exactly are the saints? Are they watching the heavenly Tao? Guan pondered silently, his gaze fixed on an Xan and the man in the red robe. The two innate golden immortals fought until the heavens and earth trembled. They tried to avoid affecting the ground. At the same time, a mysterious force covered the earth, protecting it against the aftershocks of their mana. That mysterious force came from the backing of the man in the red robe, whose existence was a Tao extreme Daoyuo immortal. Only Guan could detect his mana, the others were unaware, including an Xan who hadn't discovered its presence. An Xan used the immortal emperor's eye, but the man in the red robe could always see through it in an instant. Though he could see through it, an Xan still caused him significant trouble. Simultaneously, an Xan also felt pressured. The man in the red robe's physical strength was too formidable. Even using karma divine power couldn't harm him. An Xan felt unprecedented pressure, and so did the man in the red robe, causing his expression to turn grim. He knew his ancestor was watching him. If he couldn't defeat this woman using his own strength, how would he face his ancestor? There was also competition within their lineage. He came to the heavenly Tao with a mission. When Leah descended into this realm earlier, he noticed it but didn't pay much attention. Little did he expect such a powerful existence behind him. Nonetheless, I will not be defeated. A fierce light burst from the man in the red robe's eyes, his aura suddenly surged, shattering the surrounding space, breaking through the illusion realm created by the immortal emperor's eye, and drawing an Xan into his domain. They arrived in a vast expanse where the man in the red robe ascended high above, surrounded by rivers of the great Tao. As he struck down with his palm, countless stars descended from the heavens, crashing toward an Xan standing on the earth. So the novel, Fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. An Xan was surprised to find herself unable to move. The domain sealed her actions as soon as it pulled her in. Very impressive. Yet to think such tactics could defeat her was to underestimate her greatly. An Xan looked up. The immortal emperor's eye erupted with extraordinary light. From her eyes emerged two divine swords that rapidly enlarged, slashing the entire realm into halves, pulverizing all the stars along the way. With just a glance, she obliterated the domain and regained her mobility. The battle continued fiercely, both sides employing divine skills, yet despite their full exertion, they couldn't defeat each other in a short time. On the ground, Leah had commenced meditating. He and his disciples all looked up at the battle, but none other than himself could discern the situation. So powerful, Leah was secretly amazed. The aura of the two in the sky was beyond his reach, and their divine skills bewildered him. His sword Dao had long reached a transcendent level, his prideful asset, but compared to the mysterious divine skills of an Xian and the red-robed man, he felt his sword Dao was insignificant. Especially in Xin's eyes, as her divine skills were executed without a trace, he could perceive the red-robed man's frequent pauses, clearly affected by divine skills, yet what exactly they were, he couldn't see or guess. Over time, Leah noticed that the aftermath of the battle in the sky didn't affect them. Judging by the power an Xian and her opponent displayed, his sword intent couldn't possibly block it. What did this signify? Guan had arrived. Leah relaxed completely. A smile appeared on his face as he started to enjoy this unparalleled battle. An Xian was Guan's disciple who had come specifically to rescue him. He felt he should not be jealous but grateful to an Xian. And Xin's formidable strength was a good thing, indicating Guan's excellent teaching and serving to counteract his own arrogance and impatience. Chapter 866. This is not important. Only Guan discovered Li Ya's enlightenment. An Xian who was in the midst of battle, naturally had no way to pay attention below, while Li Ya's disciples were captivated by the battle above. After several hours passed, they finally were drawn by Li Ya's sudden enlightenment state. As the duration of the sudden enlightenment grew longer, Leah began to unconsciously affect the surrounding spiritual energy and even the rules of heaven and earth. This caused strange phenomena to appear around him, with clusters of glowing green lotuses emerging from the ground and enveloping him. What is this? Is the master practicing? No, the master has entered a state of selflessness. It looks like he's in enlightenment? Indeed, master is in sudden enlightenment. Truly, despite experiencing failure, he can quickly rally. This is exactly what we must learn. All the disciples grew excited. Leah was not only their master but had also saved their lives. Even if Leah was defeated, it would not affect his image and status in their hearts. Seeing their master in sudden enlightenment, they genuinely felt happy for him. The battle between an Xian and the red-robed man continued. For Leah, this time of sudden enlightenment felt like a trance. When he regained consciousness, he instinctively looked up. The great battle in the sky was still ongoing, but the celestial vault was no longer bright, replaced by an infinite starry sky. Dozens of golden crows were besieging an Xian, which was why the heavens seemed to be like broad daylight. Ia the Novel Fire. Any *T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. In the depths of the starry sky, countless purple eyes appeared, densely packed like a myriad of stars. Leah snapped back to reality and asked, "How long has this battle been going on?" The process of his sudden enlightenment was blurry in his memory, but he could keenly feel that a certain amount of time had passed. "Master, it has been 7 days." The disciple beside Leah answered, looking at him with eyes full of anticipation. A session of enlightenment left Li Ya's demeanor more detached and otherworldly. Not only that, the injuries on his body seemed to have healed, even the blood scabs had fallen off, leaving his skin as white as jade, as if imbued with an immortal's flawless skin and bones, though his robe was tattered and ragged. In those 7 days, watching Li Ya's transformation filled the disciples with infinite hope. Even if the person in heaven could not defeat the enemy, they believed the master could turn the tide. 7 days, huh? Leah murmured to himself. He could feel that his mana had been restored. This feeling was wondrous, leaving him with endless aftertaste. However, even in a restored state, he was no match for those two in the sky. All he could do was continue to watch. After his enlightenment, although his strength did not improve significantly, his senses and insight underwent a qualitative change. He discovered that a vast mana enveloped the earth, protecting them from the battle's impact. However, this mana was like that of the red-robed man, making him feel cold. He initially thought it was Guan shielding the heavens and earth, but now it seemed not to be the case. Behind the red-robed man, there was an even stronger presence. Li Ya's heart was filled with confusion. Why didn't these evil demons just kill them outright but chose to protect them? In his eyes, the evil demons rampaging across the heavens and earth were undoubtedly intertwined with the celestial court. Leah couldn't figure it out, so he decided not to think about it since this battle was no longer something he could intervene in. He might as well reflect on his previous experiences, striving for a leap in strength after this battle. Rather than being protected by Guan, he would rather rely on his power to shield his disciples. After 7 days of fighting, an Xian and the red-robed man's momentum had not diminished. Both were innate golden immortals, possessing immense mana. 7 days were nothing, they could battle for another 7 million years without issue. But both had extraordinary comprehension. They could make progress in battle, searching for the opponent's weaknesses. Their attacks became increasingly frightening, and they began to hurt each other. Since practicing the Immortal Emperor's Eye, an Xian had never felt such an urgent sense of threat, even somewhat powerless. Her Immortal Emperor's Eye could not prevail against the opponent. The Immortal Emperor's Eye was her greatest reliance. Should it be defeated, she would be inevitably doomed. As Nzin's mind wavered, a figure suddenly appeared before her and reached for her eyes. Nzin's pupils contracted. She had no time to react, only witnessing the hand reaching out to her. Everything happened too fast. Snap. Another hand suddenly appeared, grabbing the hand in front of an Xian. Guan appeared beside an Xian. Both stopped, as did the red-robed man in the distance poised to attack. His expression was extremely grim as he gazed at the mysterious elder before Guan and an Xian. The mysterious elder, who aimed to seize Nzin's Immortal Emperor's Eye, was clad in a dark purple robe. Though his form was human-like, his head was that of a black crow, wearing a dignified and imposing headpiece, like the embodiment of extreme evil, exuding a chilling aura. Guan saw through the origins of this mysterious elder with a glance. One of the primordial ancestors from the Dark Heavenly Court's Golden Crow clan, known as the Black Fall Emperor. The Black Fall Emperor was a Dao Extreme Daluo Immortal. He had been observing the battle all along but had not detected Guan's presence. So when Guan appeared, he was quite shocked, his eyes bewildered. With an Xian and the red-robed man ceasing their battle, the Dharma aspect permeating the universe rapidly dissipated. Only the distant void continued to twist, flames burning endlessly, all symbolic of the fierce battle that had occurred. The void fell silent in an instant. Seeing the appearance of Guan and the Black Fall Emperor, Leah immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Although he knew Guan would intervene the moment Black Fall Emperor took action, that terrifying aura also made his hair stand on end. Even with Guan's presence, there was no hint of aura revealed. If not for seeing Guan's figure with his own eyes, he would not have known that Guan had made a move. Guan released the Black Fall Emperor's hand. The Black Fall Emperor did not immediately act. He stared intently at Guan and asked in a deep voice, "Which fellow Taoist intends to intervene in this matter?" Even with Guan right in front of him, he couldn't see Guan's face, causing his vigilance to reach its peak. This person's cultivation level was likely above his. Yet within the heavenly Tao, of those stronger than him, he had seen or heard of them to some degree, but it was the first time he experienced Guan's aura. It was peaceful and tranquil without a hint of threat, yet upon closer examination, it invoked a deeply unfathomable sense of dread. Guan calmly said, "The juniors battle, if we intervene, it would be against the rules, wouldn't it?" Upon hearing this, the Black Fall Emperor's heart raced like lightning, beginning to weigh the advantages and disadvantages. Rationality told him not to act against this person, for even if he had a chance to win, the commotion would undoubtedly alarm the Celestial Court. "Let it go, it doesn't matter." Guan sighed and followed with a wave of his sleeve. His movement was too swift. The Black Fall Emperor, like an Xian before, had no time to respond, only feeling a strong breeze blowing towards him. As a Dao Extreme Daluo Immortal, the Black Fall Emperor directly turned to dust before Guan. The red-robed man froze. He hadn't reacted in time and couldn't comprehend what had happened. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Li Ya's mood was akin to Nzin's. Only by crossing swords with a reference could he appreciate Guan's profoundness and unpredictability. Beside him, a disciple cautiously asked, "Master, the disturbance outside has vanished. Does this mean the battle has concluded?" Leah withdrew his gaze and softly laughed. "Yes, it has ended. We have narrowly escaped a calamity. Let the other disciples continue their cultivation." From now on, no one will come to disturb us, at least in this realm. These words had barely been spoken before disciples from all around began to cheer, their voices shaking the heavens. Leah took a deep breath, recalling Guan's figure, his heart filled with determination. This time, upon sudden enlightenment, he felt he had truly found the right direction and eagerly anticipated future accomplishments. Elsewhere, Guan and Xan had already returned to the Taoist field of the beginningless, the master and disciple walking along the mountain path just as they did in days past, chatting freely. Xan began to summarize the battle, feeling she lacked lethal great divine power, craving that domineering force that could turn enemies to ashes upon contact. Guan mocked her greed, telling her to create for herself. He indeed possessed such divine skill but wished Xan to trail her own path. If utterly impossible, then he would teach her. Xan had no thoughts of beseeching Guan to teach her, desiring to rely on her own immortal emperor's eye to create. Setting this as her cultivation goal, an expectation filled her. From now on you'll continue in seclusion. Guan suddenly said. Carrying Xan was somewhat inconvenient, having accompanied for so many years was enough, and indeed Xan had gleaned much, a perfect conclusion. Sar the novel F.I.R. at website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Xan never resisted Guan's arrangements, nor did she question his reasoning. Turning to Guan curiously she asked, Master, will you continue to rescue the suffering all living beings? Over the years they ventured into many worlds. Aside from slaying monsters and demons, they also left behind opportunities, feeling greater accomplishment from sowing kindness and accumulating virtue rather than merely cultivating their own fortuity. I will roam again anyways, nothing much to do. Aren't you afraid the celestial court will notice? Afraid, so I'll come quietly, doing things within my capability, not striving for greater merit, just soothing an uneasy heart. Guan's reply left Xan admiring. Even as her master grew formidable, he candidly admitted his caution towards the celestial court, a trait worth learning. Thus master and disciple conversed freely, traversing mountains, appearing small and easily veiled by the vast greenery within the expansive Taoist field of the beginningless. Chapter 868. Lifespan of trillions of years. After listening to the words of Sichuan old immortal, the expression of Shenyuan human venerable fluctuated between brightness and darkness. Although Sichuan old immortal was anxious, he also understood that Shenyuan human venerable had to come to terms with this matter first. Shenyuan human venerable looked at Sichuan old immortal and asked, Have you ever thought, even if I risk everything and make the celestial army retreat, the all-living beings of the 3,000 great worlds will still hate me? Their perspective cannot see the battles of the celestial court, and even after the disaster, if I explain to them, how can they believe it? You underestimate the heart of hatred of mortal spirits. The face of Sichuan old immortal changed slightly, and following Shenyuan human venerable's words, he felt cold in his limbs. We are immortal gods. How can we explain everything to mortal spirits in person? Moreover, this is indeed the consequence of the struggles among immortal gods. The suffering mortal spirits will not care who is the instigator. They will continue to hate the immortal gods, and my destiny will only decline until my realm falls. Once the faith in the celestial court in the 3,000 great worlds drops to a certain level, Sangtian will erase the 3,000 great worlds. When Taishang set up this situation, no matter what we do, the outcome is already determined. By the end, Shenyuan human venerable's tone became cold, and Sichuan old immortal bowed his head. Once Sangtian decides to erase the 3,000 great worlds, Shenyuan human venerable, who holds the immortal position governing the 3,000 great worlds, will undoubtedly be severely punished. Sichuan old immortal became more and more desperate, feeling utterly hopeless. For a moment, the hall fell into silence. The celestial army led by the Marshal of Heaven continued to sweep across the great thousand world, and wherever they passed, nothing could stop them, not even the grand alliance of the 3,000 great worlds stood a chance against them. Even though they were invincible in battle, the Marshal of Heaven did not speed up, nor would he stop anyone who wanted to escape. He swept through all heavens and myriad realms at his own pace. Every world they passed became shrouded in darkness, and as the faith in the heavenly Tao among all living beings grew weaker, the celestial Tao light layer that protected the world also weakened, granting more opportunities for invasion by the dark heavenly court, chaos evil demons and e'en ghost gods. There were many great powers like Li Ya who, not daring to confront the celestial court, chose to save all beings. A great power proclaimed that at the latest, in 300 years, the immortal gods would descend upon the celestial spirit great world. Against this backdrop, more outer heaven visitors entered the world gate, some coming to support the celestial spirit great world, others to watch the battle and gather information. Guan paid no mind to the turbulent currents in the human world, instead quietly harvesting lifespans, leaving hope amidst the lands bathed in blood. The cultivation techniques he left behind were all basic chi absorption techniques, which wouldn't be tainted by his cause and effect. As all living beings awaited anxiously, the immortal god army once again bathed a region of the great thousand worlds in blood. On the rolling thunderclouds above, the Marshal of Heaven stood atop the clouds, hands behind his back, coldly overlooking the scorched earth below, watching mountains collapse with an unchanged expression. Wuxia the Novel Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. A celestial god appeared beside him out of thin air and spoke. Marshal, the living beings of this realm are less than 1 in 10. Should we proceed to the next great world? Yes. The Marshal of Heaven responded. The celestial god immediately took out a scroll, unfolded it to reveal the cosmic starry scenery, full of dazzling nebulas swirling, their number beyond estimation, constantly shifting, drawing close at times, then drifting away, dizzying to behold. The celestial god placed the scroll before the Marshal of Heaven, awaiting his selection. The Marshal of Heaven surveyed the landscape within the scroll, asking, "Has Emperor Xinqing been born in the celestial spirit great world?" The nebulae within the scroll symbolized the great thousand worlds, and the Marshal of Heaven only needed to focus on a great world to insight into this realm's general cause and effect through celestial Tao destiny. There are indeed such rumors, the celestial god replied respectfully. The Marshal of Heaven waved his sleeve, storing the scroll back with the celestial god, saying, "This realm originates from the contest of the Son of Heaven, so let's go to the world where the Son of Heaven was born and give other innocent worlds more time to breathe." As you command. The celestial god immediately accepted the order and turned to relay the command. The Marshal of Heaven still stood proudly on the clouds, overlooking the broken earth. Behind him gradually rose golden light, casting his countenance into darkness. The calamity of the celestial spirit great world was finally coming. In the dim heavens and earth, Jianghu meditated atop a mountain peak, fierce winds howling all around, thousands of bolts of lightning interweaving above his head, as if he were in hell. Suddenly, Jianghu opened his eyes, frowning, raising a hand to cover his chest. This feeling, could it be? A stern look flashed in Jianghu's eyes, and he instinctively wanted to stand, but a skeletal hand rested on his shoulder, preventing him from rising. He didn't need to turn to know who was behind him. The immortal gods are about to descend upon the great world. I can't just wait. Jianghu said in a deep voice. The Emperor Bone Profound Venerable, with a terrifying and shocking posture, stood behind Jianghu calmly stating, "What you long for may already be gone, and that world has only brought you painful memories. Why bother? Besides, the immortal gods won't destroy that world. You can naturally go when they leave." Jianghu fell silent for a moment, saying, "There are indeed many painful memories, but it's the place where I was born, and I once had beautiful memories. I don't want to watch it perish." He saw the faces of his father, Master Gu, and Leah flash through his mind. Time had passed so long, memories of the past had become distant, but he always wanted to return. Even if those familiar people were no longer there. Now is not the time to oppose the celestial court. Your task is to cultivate, to master the demon god body as soon as possible. The Emperor Bone Profound Venerable declared coldly, his tone leaving no room for doubt. Jianghu immediately tried to stand up, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't rise. "If you don't let me go, even if I cultivate and succeed in the future, he'll hold a grudge against you." Jianghu gritted his teeth and said. The Emperor Bone Profound Venerable passed on cultivation techniques to him, clearly intending to nurture him, but Jianghu could never accept the Emperor Bone Profound Venerable, because the Emperor Bone Profound Venerable sought to destroy the heavenly Tao. "Your grudge is your own, I don't care. Blame yourself for not being strong enough now to break free of my restraint." The Emperor Bone Profound Venerable mocked. "Your world is destined for destruction. I welcome you to come seek revenge later." Hearing these words, Jianghu was furious. He was just about to say something when everything suddenly went black before him, and his consciousness plunged into emptiness. In the celestial spirit great world, in the depths of the universe. In front of the world gate, the celestial spirit god was meditating and cultivating. A golden light suddenly descended, shining upon him, startling him to open his eyes. He saw at the top of the universe above rolling thunderclouds, from which a beam of golden light pierced through, descending straight to the world gate. The celestial spirit god sensed a familiar heat. This was the celestial Tao golden light. The vast celestial court's destiny was descending, his complexion changed drastically. The celestial army had finally arrived. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Of distinguished descent, he had also been to the Immortal Palace, but his immortal position was too low, and he had only heard of the legendary heavenly ascension stairs. What unsettled him most was that the scale of this celestial army far exceeded his expectations. Wave after wave of powerful presences were descending, enveloping the universe, showcasing the might of the celestial court to all living beings. This spells big trouble, Tai Immortal Monarch softly murmured, gazing up at the figures of the celestial gods atop the heavenly ascension stairs. The faces of the 72 immortals of Jianghu were equally grim. They felt even more uneasy than Tai Immortal Monarch and the celestial spirit god, because they had the Golden Cave Immortal sect behind them. If this battle were lost, their sect might be implicated. An overbearing pressure, far surpassing other immortal gods, descended, plunging all the great worlds within the universe into silence, and all beings felt as if a heavy blow had struck their chests, words choking in their throats. The wind ceased, the vast sea quieted, suffocation to the extreme. The celestial spirit god and others saw a foot step out from that blinding light. Below this foot, even the immortal gods seemed like mere pebbles. As its owner continued to descend, their true form gradually became apparent. It was the Marshal of Heaven. His boots stepped through billowing spirit mist, his silver armor projecting an illusory image, as if an ancient divine beast clawed ferociously, while his face beneath the helmet remained concealed by the light of the heavenly Tao, with a flood dragon coiled atop his helmet, seemingly roaring with all its might. 2 large flags stood behind the Marshal of Heaven, flapping resoundingly, like the sound of wind and thunder, or the wrathful voice of the heavenly constitution. Tai Immortal Monarch immediately knelt down, raised his hand in salute to the Marshal of Heaven, lowering his head without daring to meet the Marshal's gaze. The 72 immortals of Jianghu did the same. The Marshal of Heaven's footsteps were exceedingly heavy, overshadowing all noise. His unhurried pace brought an ever-increasing sense of oppression to the celestial spirit god and others. One heavenly soldier and general after another descended from above like torrential rain, landing in front of the world gate, surrounding the celestial spirit god and others. Meanwhile, great cultivators from the celestial spirit great world flew in like a torrent, gazing at the heavenly ascension stairs from afar, stunned, even dumbstruck. What is that? Immortal gods have arrived. What is this treasure? Such terrifying pressure, where did that golden rank come from? Could it possibly extend from the heavenly realm to here? Is this the power of the heavenly court immortals? It's over? What should we do? Are we really going to confront such entities?